Chapter 31. So what if you have a car? Longsheng Group, President's Office. Su Yenner was on the phone, and suddenly her voice unconsciously raised a few decibels. Really good, please arrange it as soon as possible, goodbye. After hanging up the phone, Su Yenner rubbed the root of her nose and her face showed fatigue that was hard to hide. A moment later, Su Yenner gathered her spirits, picked up the intercom phone on the table, and came in. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Hao Yu, the CEO's secretary, pushed open the door, stood opposite Su Yenner, and respectfully called out, President Su. I need to go to the hospital this afternoon, so cancel all my appointments before 3 p.m. today. If you can't cancel them, postpone them until later. Okay, President Su. Hao Yu, the secretary standing across from the large desk, quickly pulled out her phone and made the changes to her schedule. Su Yenner's beautiful eyes narrowed for a moment before she asked, What's my uncle been up to lately? Hao Yu immediately replied, Vice President Su has been contacting several other minority shareholders again recently, and it seems that some progress has been made. Su Yenner said helplessly, My uncle is really restless. The old man hasn't even died yet, and he's already jumping up and down. Hao Yu hesitated for a moment and said, President, there's something else that's very strange. Vice President Su has recently been deliberately suppressing Bohai Construction, which has been cooperating with the group for several years, and has already made many moves behind the scenes. Su Yenner's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Why is my uncle targeting Bohai Construction? We don't know yet. Hao Yu asked, Should we pay attention to this matter? Su Yenner thought about it for a while and decided to let it go. You don't need to accompany me at noon. Tell Lao He to wait for me downstairs at 11:30. Okay. After waiting for a while and seeing that Su Yenner didn't say anything else, Hao Yu left the office. Su Yenner turned and looked out the window. 28th floor, she really liked this location, it gave her a feeling of looking down on everyone else. Standing here, it seemed like the whole world was in her hands. However, with the fall of her grandfather, it seemed that Longsheng Group had also begun to become less stable. After He Fei left, Zhao Xiaonian didn't feel like eating breakfast alone. He took out his phone and looked up some information about secondary immunodeficiency on it. Immunodeficiency diseases are lifelong diseases that refer to the body's lack of antibodies or cellular immunity. They can only be alleviated by medication to delay the progression of the disease. Immunodeficiency, the body's resistance is very low, and even a small amount of pathogens can cause serious infections. According to the different natures of immunodeficiency, it can be divided into three major categories: primary humoral immunodeficiency, primary cellular immunodeficiency, and combined immunodeficiency, which has both. Congenital immunodeficiency diseases mostly occur in infants and young children, while secondary immunodeficiency diseases can occur at any age. They usually cannot be self-healed and lack effective treatment methods. It can be said that the treatment of immunodeficiency is a bottomless pit. Generally speaking, families suffering from this disease cannot afford it financially. Even a petty bourgeois family like He Fei could not last for more than a few years. Suddenly, Zhao Xiaonian thought that after counterattacking He Fei last night, the system seemed to have rewarded him with medical knowledge, and he was busy calling out in his mind. System, is there any reward I haven't claimed yet? Ding, the host has completed a 100% complete reversal of the target He Fei and obtained a special reversal reward traditional Chinese medicine proficient level. Do you wish to claim it? Sure enough, there is. Claim. Claim successful. Reward distribution begins. With the sound of the system, Zhao Xiaonian felt a huge amount of knowledge flood into his mind like a tidal wave, slowly merging with his memories and eventually becoming a part of them. Throughout the process, Zhao Xiaonian was like an old monk entering meditation, motionless. Traditional Chinese medicine is indeed vast and profound. After more than 10 minutes, Zhao Xiaonian, who was sweating profusely, slowly regained his composure. He opened his eyes slowly and let out a breath of. It seemed that He Fei's younger brother's illness could be treated with traditional Chinese medicine. Upon thinking of this, Zhao Xiaonian turned and followed him out of the villa without saying a word. The first hospital is the best hospital in Lingzhou, and accordingly, there are many people coming for medical treatment every day. As the number of people increases, so does the number of cars, and every day, as long as the hospital is open for business, this area is a major traffic congestion hotspot. It is especially bad in the morning. Zhao Xiaonian drove the Ferrari 812 and, with the guidance of the navigation system, found the parking lot closest to the hospital. The reason he didn't drive to the hospital's parking lot was that the traffic began to get congested more than 200 meters away from the hospital. And with so many cars, the hospital's parking lot would naturally be full long ago. So Zhao Xianyan listened to the navigation's advice very carefully. After getting out of the car, because he was not familiar with the area, Zhao Xianyan switched the navigation to walking mode and continued walking towards the first hospital. The navigation system suggested a shortcut to Zhao Xianyan: just go through an old alley, and he would soon arrive, at least 5 minutes faster than if he took the main road. Although it was called an alley, it was actually an older residential area, and there were quite a few residents sitting under the eaves nearby, chatting with their neighbors. Beep. Suddenly, the sound of a car horn sounded behind him. Because the distance was very close and the car horn sounded suddenly, Zhao Xianyan was startled and his phone almost fell to the ground. Turning around, a black Rolls-Royce was behind him. Looking at his side, there was enough space for the car to pass safely, so Zhao Xianyan couldn't understand why the car had to let him out of the way. Beep. The driver impatiently honked the horn twice. Through the windshield, Zhao Xianyan saw the driver in a suit impatiently waving his hand at him, telling him to pull over. Zhao Xianyan was furious. I've already pulled over, what's the problem? Do you want me to lean against the wall? He turned his head and ignored the driver. Beep beep. The car behind him honked again. This made Zhao Xianyan even more angry, so he didn't even lean over, but took 2 big steps and walked directly to the middle of the alley. Damn it, there's room for you to go, but you insist on honking, thinking that driving a car makes you a big shot, right? Fine, then you drive, and we'll just take our time strolling along. Drip, drip, drip. The Rolls-Royce saw that Zhao Xianyan had no intention of giving way, but instead blocked the traffic and just strolled along at a leisurely pace. A few more honks sounded. Zhao Xianyan didn't bother to pay any attention to such people, and continued to follow the guidance of the navigation system with a clear conscience. Lao He, what's going on? Su Yener, who was reading information in the Rolls-Royce, heard the honking and looked up, asking the driver somewhat discontentedly. Seeing his boss frowning, Lao He hurriedly explained, Ms. Su, someone is deliberately blocking the road. Su Yener looked at her watch and said, hurry up, I'm in a hurry. Chapter 32, The Strong Woman Who Doesn't Like Strangers. Lao He hurriedly agreed, but dared not honk the horn again for fear of upsetting his boss again. He had no choice but to stop the car and get out. Hey, are you fucking deaf? Didn't you hear me honk? As soon as Lao He got out of the car, he shouted at Zhao Xianyan, who was still walking slowly. Zhao Xianyan retorted directly, are you fucking blind, driving into such a small alley? Then why didn't you move over? I honked several times, didn't you hear me? Do you know what kind of car this is? This is a Rolls-Royce. Lao He was taken aback and pointed at the flying goddess emblem on the hood of the car. Zhao Xianyan glanced at it and asked, so what if you drive a Rolls-Royce? Is this a road you can drive into? Lao He, I always used to. Zhao Xianyan never gave Lao He a chance to finish his sentence. He just kept driving, thinking that he was always right. I've been walking this way since I was a kid. Just because you drive a car, you think you're so awesome, don't you? You have no quality at all. This is a residential area, why are you honking your horn so loudly? Luckily, I have a strong heart, otherwise you would have scared me into having a heart attack. At this point, several onlookers from the surrounding residents also chimed in. Yes, it's such a small place, and you're driving. The honking just now scared me so much that I almost knocked over the washing basin. These drivers just have no manners. With the help of the passers-by, Lao He's face suddenly became a little embarrassed. He has been driving for so many years that wherever he goes, people will automatically give way as soon as they see the car logo. And he has been in this alley several times before, and every time he honks, passers-by stand aside to let him pass. That feeling gives him an inexplicable sense of satisfaction and pleasure. However, today he actually encountered such a rude kid, who didn't even budge when he saw his car coming. This made him very unhappy. Boom! A dull but clear sound of the car door closing sounded, and Lao He hurriedly looked back and saw that his boss had indeed got out of the car. Lao He also didn't care about Zhao Xianyan, and hurriedly walked over to the car. He was about to explain to his boss when he heard his boss say, just back up the car and I'll walk over there. Lao He nodded, okay, boss. Lao He immediately got back in the car, put it in reverse gear, and slowly drove back the way he had come. Zhao Xianyan looked at the woman getting out of the car. Even though he had been dealing with beautiful women a lot recently, he was still a little shocked. The woman was wearing a well-cut-off white suit for women, with a round face and delicate features. Although she wasn't very tall, her cold expression gave off a strong aura of masculinity and made people feel a sense of distance. From the moment she got out of the car, the woman's gaze never once rested on Zhao Xianyan, as if she were surrounded by air. She looked straight ahead, walked quickly in high heels towards the front of the alley. She looks down on everyone. Zhao Xianyan felt that this word was very suitable for this woman. Ding, target found and can be locked on. Su Yener. Age, 28. Face value, 91. Height, 164. Strategy, 0. Favorability, 20. Zhao Xianyan, damn, no way, just one look and the favorability is 20? First hospital. He was in the hospital. Zhao Xianyan called He Fei several times, but there was no answer. There was nothing he could do, so he had to look at each department on his own. Primary immunodeficiency usually involves 2 or 3 departments, such as the immunology department and the pediatrics department. He was just about to walk towards the outpatient building when he saw an object slowly flash past him. He looked over subconsciously and his face suddenly changed. The object was a wheelchair, and an old man was sitting in it. The wheelchair was on a slope, and under the force of gravity, it was speeding up, heading towards the hospital driveway. Behind the wheelchair, a slim woman was answering the phone with her back to the wheelchair, unaware of the danger. Be careful. Stop that wheelchair. Oh my God. Zhao Xianyan was not the only one who noticed the situation. Many people around him also saw the wheelchair sliding downhill and shouted out. The closest person to the wheelchair was Zhao Xianyan. Without a second thought, he took a few quick steps and chased after it. The woman who was talking on the phone also heard the screams and turned around sharply. She realized that the wheelchair that was just in front of her was sliding downhill. Grandpa! The woman exclaimed, and lifted her foot to chase after the wheelchair. Unfortunately, she was wearing high heels and simply couldn't keep up with the speed at which the wheelchair was sliding. As she watched, the wheelchair slid faster and faster, almost crashing into the carriageway. Although the hospital was unable to completely segregate pedestrians and vehicles, there were concrete water barriers set up along the edge of the carriageway, connected by steel pipes to form a 50-centimeter high guardrail. It was precisely because of this guardrail that the wheelchair became even more dangerous. If the wheelchair hits the water horse or steel pipe, it may be stopped. But under the effect of speed, the wheelchair will definitely tip over forward, so the old man sitting in the wheelchair is in danger. Don't underestimate such a fall. It's not good for a strong man to fall like this, let alone an old man. Just as the wheelchair got closer and closer to the guardrail, a young man running at full speed finally caught up and overtook the wheelchair. Then the young man quickly turned around, facing the wheelchair, grabbed the sides of the wheelchair with both hands, leaned forward, and took a lunge with his feet. With a squeak, the wheelchair slid for about 1-2 meters before finally coming to a stop. Zhao Xianyan did not dare to relax, slowly moved the wheelchair to the side, and then stepped on the wheelchair's tire latch. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. After moving his hands around, he found that apart from a little sudden force that stretched his arms a little, he himself was not injured. It was at that moment that the woman in high heels finally caught up. The woman first crouched down next to the wheelchair with concern, and looked at the old man with concern, asking, "Grandpa, are you okay?" The old man didn't say anything, just making a sound of Zhao Xianyan then carefully observed the old man in the wheelchair. The old man looked to be in his 70s, with gray hair. His mouth was crooked, his eyes stared to the side, and his body twitched slightly from time to time. It was a stroke. And it looked like it was a pretty serious one. Chapter 33. You can come to me. The woman saw that her grandfather was fine, and her heart was finally set at ease. She then stood up and was about to express her gratitude to the young man who had helped her, but when she saw that it was Zhao Xianyan, she was taken aback. It's you? Su Yener recognized the young man in front of her as the person who had just blocked her car in the alley. She had wanted to thank the other person, but Su Yener suddenly didn't want to say anything. Su Yener took out her wallet from her bag, opened it, and took out a stack of money from it, and handed it to Zhao Xianyan. This is a little token of my appreciation. Although Zhao Xianyan blocked her car and delayed her, that's one thing. No matter what, Zhao Xianyan saved her grandfather, so she should say thank you. The stack of money was quite thick, with at least 3,000 yuan in it. In Su Yener's opinion, this should be enough to express her sincerity and gratitude. Zhao Xianyan looked at the stack of money in front of him, and then looked at the woman's face a few more times, revealing a mocking expression, and ignored Su Yener. He crouched down, looked at the old man's complexion, and casually placed his right hand on the old man's wrist. "Old man, you're lucky to have met me today, but you may not have such good luck next time. Your granddaughter is so unreliable." "What do you mean?" Su Yener's eyebrows tightened slightly. Standing up, Zhao Xiaoyan looked at Su Yener and said, "You didn't even stop to put the wheelchair's buckle back on. You really have a big heart." "I was on the phone and didn't notice." Su Yener was a little afraid when she thought about what had just happened. Although she had been scolded a little by Zhao Xiaoyan, she didn't feel any ill will from the other person. Su Yener held up the money again. "You take this. Thank you for helping my grandfather just now. Isn't this enough?" Zhao Xiaoyan glanced at Su Yener. In this era of convenient mobile payments, there are really not many people who carry cash. I remember reading somewhere that people who carry large amounts of cash are psychologically insecure. But judging from the strong woman she is, Su Yener should not be allowed to do so. Hearing Zhao Xiaoyan's words, Su Yener's face sank a little, thinking that the other party was going to take the opportunity to extort money from her. 1 million. Zhao Xiaoyan casually said a number. "Your appetite is a bit too big, isn't it?" "It's okay." Zhao Xiaoyan shrugged. "Your grandfather had a stroke more than half a year ago, right?" Su Yener was stunned and looked at Zhao Xiaoyan with some surprise. Didn't the doctor say that the possibility of recovery was very low?" Although I don't know why Zhao Xiaoyan asked, Su Yener still answered, "I can cure your grandfather's stroke." Zhao Xiaoyan looked at Su Yener and said, 1 million, is that still expensive?" Su Yener looked at Zhao Xiaoyan from top to bottom, not trusting him at all. The hospital said there was no hope. "Are you sure you can cure it?" Zhao Xiaoyan, was about to speak when the phone rang. It was He Fei. "Believe it or not. If you've made up your mind, come to Villa 8 in Longsheng Housing and find me." After saying this, Zhao Xiaoyan answered the phone and said as he walked towards the outpatient building, "Where are you?" "That's good. Do you want me to come up?" He Fei's brother's condition has stabilized. He was infected with a virus, but after a few injections, the infection was brought under control. He is now resting in the ward under observation. In fact, the biggest fear in the treatment of HIV is viral infection. If you are not careful, you may be infected by the virus. Although Zhao Xiaoyan has the medical skills rewarded by the system, he has only reached the proficient level, and he does not have a better way to treat HIV. And when He Fei said on the phone that her parents were there, Zhao Xiaoyan knew what she meant. She was afraid that if her parents caught her in the act, she would have a hard time explaining herself. Although the two of them were now having a relationship, in essence, Zhao Xiaoyan had essentially bought himself, and the relationship was very complicated. And it's not a good place to meet right now. Zhao Xiaoyan thought about it and gave up. Although he had the medical skills rewarded by the system, he really didn't have any treatment for primary immune diseases. For lunch, Zhao Xiaoyan ate at a small shop he found on the side of the road, spending a total of 25 yuan. Although his current value had reached billions of dollars, Zhao Xiaoyan always felt like an ordinary person. He had a very happy meal at this roadside shop. What made him happier was the owner of the shop. Driving a Ferrari sports car, but coming to eat his own food, this event is enough for him to brag about for a year. When the sports car pulled up to the gate of Lingzhou University, Zhao Xiaoyan was still thinking about how to convince the security guard to let him in. But who would have thought that when his car was still 10 meters from the gate was already opened by the security guard. Sure enough, as long as you have money, the treatment you receive will be completely different. Zhao Xiaoyan didn't linger, and drove directly onto the campus of Lingzhou University. With its low rumble, cool appearance, and distinctive car logo, the black Ferrari 812 immediately garnered 100% attention. Holy shit, isn't this my dream car? This must be some rich kid from a wealthy family looking for a girl. If I had a car like this, I wouldn't have to worry about getting a girlfriend. Crap, it's just a sports car, what's so great about it? I'll have one of those in the future. Zhao Xiaoyan naturally couldn't hear the students' discussions. The 812 kept a low speed as it drove around the campus, before turning into the campus parking lot. After leaving the parking lot, Zhao Xiaoyan went straight back to the dormitory. It had been a few days since he last saw Guo Liang and Li Liwei. By the way, he didn't know what the situation was with Zhang Haolong, so he thought he would give him a call sometime. When he returned to the dormitory, he was surprised to find that the door was locked from the outside. Guo Liang and Li Liwei were both unusually absent from the dormitory. Zhao Xiaoyan took out his phone and first called Guo Liang. but there was no answer after ringing for a long time. So Zhao Xiaoyan called Li Liwei again, and this time he answered quickly. "Hello, what's up?" Li Liwei spoke in a low voice, a little bit quietly. "Liwei, where are you guys? Why is the dormitory door locked?" "We're at the library." "Okay, I'll go find you now." After hanging up the phone, Zhao Xiaoyan looked at the direction of the sun. Yes, it's rising in the east. But Guo Liang and Li Liwei, who had never gone to the library more than 3 times during their university years, were now going to the library in their 4th year, when they were about to graduate. When something seems unusual, there is usually a catch. 10 minutes later, Zhao Xiaoyan had just entered the library when he saw Guo Liang and Li Liwei sitting at a long table in the library. But it was obvious that the two of them were not reading. Chapter 34, Evening Love. Li Liwei was idly playing with his phone, and the landscape orientation showed that he was playing a game. Guo Liang had a book in front of him, but his eyes were clearly on the book, and every now and then he would look slightly sideways. Following Guo Liang's line of sight, there was a girl sitting in the seat separated from Guo Liang by an empty seat. The girl wore glasses and had shoulder-length short hair. Because she kept her head down, Zhao Xiaoyan couldn't see her face clearly. There's definitely something going on. Zhao Xiaoyan walked over quietly and sat down next to Li Liwei. Li Liwei glanced over, ignored Zhao Xiaoyan, and continued playing the game. From the expression on his face, Zhao Xiaoyan knew that he had definitely lost several times in a row. Guo Liang, on the other hand, was so focused on the short-haired girl that he didn't even notice Zhao Xiaoyan's arrival. "Viagra, what's going on?" Zhao Xiaoyan leaned over to Li Liwei and asked in a low voice. "Damn, I've been playing for a few rounds in a row, and I'm almost at the silver rank." "Zhao Xiaoyan. I'm not asking you, I'm asking what's going on with Liang." "Oh, this. Guo Liang met him in the cafeteria at noon and dragged me along." Li Liwei held up 3 fingers, which was already the 3rd one. Zhao Xiaoyan didn't understand what Li Liwei meant, and his face was full of question marks. Li Liwei looked at Guo Liang and simply stopped playing the game, gathering with Zhao Xiaoyan. This kid has been acting strange lately. Whenever he sees a girl he likes, he follows her. The first time, he saw a girl running on the sports field and without saying a word, he followed her and ran with her for 5 laps. The second time was in an internet cafe. He saw a girl sitting next to him and, even though he had to log off, he charged another 100 yuan for membership and sat there all afternoon. This was the 3rd time. He followed her all the way from the cafeteria. Holy shit, is Liang Zai trying to play late blooming love? Zhao Xiaoyan muttered. Li Liwei gave a contemptuous expression. This guy is not late blooming, he is just in love. He is like a teddy bear in love, falling in love with everyone he sees. Zhao Xiaoyan's curiosity was piqued. He never expected that something so big had happened while he was gone for just a few days. So what happened? What happened? Nothing. The first girl, he couldn't outrun her, and he left without even saying hello. The second one had a boyfriend, and the girl was just playing games with her boyfriend on her phone, so it was hopeless. As for this one, they'd been sitting in the library for an hour, and he didn't even dare to say hello, so they just sat there in silence. Zhao Xiaoyan was suddenly speechless. At this moment, Guo Liang also turned around and saw Zhao Xiaoyan. He nodded as if to say hello, then continued to read with his head bowed, tilting his head to look at the short-haired girl. After sitting for a few minutes, Zhao Xiaoyan felt that it was really not interesting. There was nothing else to do, so he simply picked up a book on the table and started reading. He only read for a while when suddenly there was movement next to him. He saw that the short-haired girl had already packed up her things, picked up her bag and walked out of the library, without even glancing at Guo Liang and the others once. Taking advantage of this moment, Zhao Xiaoyan was finally able to get a good look at the short-haired girl's appearance. The short-haired girl was not very pretty, but her face was very white, and without any makeup, she gave the impression of being clean and pure. Her clothes were also very ordinary, a t-shirt and jeans, and she was wearing a pair of sneakers. Guo Liang saw that when the short-haired girl was about to reach the front door of the library, she didn't even bother to tidy up her books, so he stood up and followed her out. Zhao Xiaoyan, what is he doing? Nothing, just following. The main thing is to silently guard. Li Liwei stretched and stood up as well. So, a strange scene played out in the library. A girl walked in front, a guy followed a few meters behind, and then 2 more guys followed with their shoulders hooked. Just as they walked out of the library, Jia Siki suddenly turned around and looked at Guo Liang. How long are you going to follow me? Obviously, the short-haired girl had noticed Guo Liang a long time ago. But that's not surprising. If someone is peeking over at you, anyone who isn't blind will notice. Jia Siki's sudden question took Guo Liang by surprise, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. Seeing his friend like this, Zhao Xiaonian was worried for him and shouted from behind. He wants to get to know you. Guo Liang was so embarrassed by Zhao Xiaonian's words that he felt a little embarrassed to look at the girl. The girl, however, gave Zhao Xiaonian a glare. Did I ask you? I was asking him. Zhao Xiaonian. In the dormitory. Zhao Xiaonian and Li Liwei sat facing each other, both of them sighing. Li Liwei asked, "Tell me, what is Liangzi's situation now?" How would I know? Zhao Xiaonian still hasn't reacted to what's going on. When they were in the library, after seeing Zhao Xiaonian get rejected, Guo Liang didn't know what came over him and just blurted out, "I want to chase after you." However, things started to take an unexpected turn from here. The girl didn't think Guo Liang was being forward at all, and said, "Come with me to the library again. I haven't finished reading my book yet. Your friends can stay behind." Guo Liang immediately forgot about his friends and chased after the girl, happily escorting her to the library. You think they might have fallen for each other? I guess so. Li Liwei thought about it for a long time, then suddenly stood up and said to Zhao Xiaonian, "I want to have a late life romance too." It seems that Guo Liang's story had inspired him. It's strange, but of the 4 people in Zhao Xiaonian's dormitory, only he has been single. The second-generation rich boy Zhang Haolong is strictly forbidden by his family to fool around. I heard that his family has already chosen a candidate for him. Guo Liang and Li Liwei simply gave up the idea after repeatedly failing to get single, and devoted themselves to their gaming careers. Zhao Xiaonian got a girlfriend, but she dumped him. In fact, Guo Liang and Li Liwei are both quite good-looking. They're not exactly handsome, but they definitely look good. But for some reason, they can't get a girlfriend. This time, Guo Liang's success obviously stimulated Li Liwei. He hadn't planned to start a relationship at school, but after Guo Liang's success, his heart became restless too. Just then, the dormitory door opened. Guo Liang walked in, whistling and looking full of springtime satisfaction. Seeing Guo Liang come back, Li Liwei hurriedly asked, "Liangzi, what's the situation now?" Guo Liang laughed and said, "Jia Xiao, Jr., Foreign Language Department, from Qian Province." Seeing Guo Liang stop here, Zhao Xiaonian asked, "And then?" "Nothing." Zhao Xiaonian. Chapter 35, I'm the one chasing after her. No, you've been chatting for ages and all you've talked about is ID information? Li Liwei was at a loss for words too. Guo Liang looked at Li Liwei like he was looking at an idiot. What else could they have talked about? Come on, we've just met, haven't we? Zhao Xiaonian, so how does she feel about you? Can you two become a couple? I don't know, but at least she and I have now become acquainted. We've finally taken the first step. The small flame of love that Li Wei had just lit went out in an instant. His curiosity also died down. He lay down on the bed, took out his phone and continued with his gaming career. Liangzi, hurry, let's play a game. Guo Liang took out his phone, but contrary to normal, he didn't open the game, but instead opened a job recruitment website. I'm not playing anymore, I'm going to seriously look for a job. Li Wei suddenly got up from the bed. Liangzi, what's got into you? Didn't we say we wanted to enjoy our last days at university together? Guo Liang and Li Wei had never thought about looking for a job. In their words, they would become social animals after graduation and live the life of KPL in 996. They thought they might as well enjoy life and squander their last days at university. But Guo Liang suddenly said he wanted to find a job, which made Li Liwei suddenly feel abandoned by his teammate. Xiao asked me today if I had found a job? What are your plans and intentions for the future? I realized that I couldn't answer. Guo Liang said seriously, I suddenly feel that I'm wasting my life by idling away like this. So I've decided to start looking for a job now and start my own business in the future. You have no idea, Xiao is a junior this year, studying foreign languages, but she is now self-teaching herself about financial management. She wants to stay in Lingzhou after graduating from university and doesn't want to go back to Guizhou province. She says that competition in society is fierce and that if she wants to live a good life in the future, she has to work hard now. At this moment, Zhao Xiaonian has a completely different impression of the short-haired girl with glasses. So, I have to work hard now too. For my own sake, and for Xiao's. Guo Liang smiles. I think Xiao is a good girl, and I've decided to seriously pursue her. Zhao Xiaoyan patted Guo Liang on the shoulder and said, I support you. Li Liwei didn't say anything, but he turned off the game on his phone. Xiaoyan, you haven't found a job yet, have you? Even though you've been dumped, you can't just wallow in self-pity. You should seriously look for a job. Guo Liang suddenly took on the attitude of a seasoned veteran, patted Zhao Xiaoyan on the shoulder and said with earnestness. Zhao Xiaoyan. Night falls and the lights come on. The commercial street in front of the main entrance of Lingzhou University also welcomes its busiest time of the day. It is said that a university can support the people within a 10-kilometer radius, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but it really shows the driving effect of a university on the local economy. Zhao Xiaoyan's meal card has long since run out of money, and today, seeing that Guo Liang and Li Liwei are starting to look for a job, he suggested that everyone stop eating in the dormitory and go out to eat. Of course, Zhao Xiaoyan generously offered to pay. Damn, these days you even have to book a barbecue in advance, there's just no one left. Guo Liang skillfully rolled the skewers in his hands, sprinkling them with seasoning from time to time. Before long, a burst of aroma wafted out. De Ge Barbecue is a well-known barbecue restaurant on the commercial street. It's not that the barbecue at this restaurant tastes particularly good, but because this barbecue restaurant focuses on customers cooking for themselves. Guo Liang was busy grilling, while Li Liwei was helping out. The two worked together in perfect harmony. Guo Liang, I can see that you can support yourself even if you can't do anything else, just by running a barbecue stall. Zhao Xiaoyan took a bite of the kebab that Guo Liang had grilled and passed over. It was really good, I must say. Get lost, you'll never amount to anything. Guo Liang said angrily, I've just got my spirits up today, don't you ruin it. Li Liwei was good at adjusting the atmosphere, carrying a bottle of wine and pouring it for everyone at the table, then raising his glass and saying to Zhao Xiaoyan, come on, let's toast to our benefactor tonight, Mr. Zhao. Zhao Xiaoyan quite liked the atmosphere of the university dormitory. The few guys there weren't people with a lot of ulterior motives, and even Zhang Haolong, the rich second generation, didn't have the smarmy air that other rich second generations had. Eating barbecue while drinking a little wine, what a great feeling. Brother Xiaoyan, you're here too? Suddenly, a voice sounded behind Zhao Xiaoyan. He turned around and saw Zhang Yuhan. Instantly, the originally lively atmosphere came to a sudden halt with Zhang Yuhan's arrival. It's Yuhan, why are you here eating too? I came with some friends. Zhang Yuhan pointed to a table not far behind her, where a few girls were busily fiddling with the barbecue. Looking at those girls, they were all tall and slender, so it went without saying that they must all be studying to become models. Guo Liang and Li Liwei were now both staring. Zhang Yuhan was beautiful in her own right, but with her model's height, and especially those long legs, any man would be unable to resist taking a second look. Zhao Xiaoyan ignored the two good-for-nothings and pointed to the empty seat next to him. Come, let's eat together. Zhang Yuhan obediently sat down next to Zhao Xiaoyan. Looking at Zhang Yuhan sitting next to Zhao Xiaoyan, Guo Liang gave Zhao Xiaoyan an inquiring look and asked, Xiaoyan, who is this? Do you want to introduce us? Oh, let me introduce you. This is my friend, Zhang Yuhan, a junior majoring in modeling. Yuhan, these two are my classmates and roommates, Guo Liang and Li Liwei. Hello, Liang, and hello, Liwei. Zhang Yuhan greeted the two men very generously. It was fine when she called him Brother Liang, but when she called Li Liwei Brother Viagra, he looked as if he had constipation. Putting aside her mercenary personality, Zhang Yuhan is definitely the kind of woman who will make a man look good when she goes out with him. She is pretty, generous, and doesn't seem like a petty person when it comes to dealing with others. At least on the surface, there is nothing wrong to see. In no time at all, she became familiar with Guo Liang and Li Liwei. What I'm more concerned about now is what kind of relationship you two have. Guo Liang pointed at Zhao Xiaoyan and Zhang Yuhan and asked with a raised eyebrow. Before Zhao Xiaoyan could say anything, Zhang Yuhan preempted him, I'm courting Brother Xiaoyan. Those words stunned both men, but gave Zhao Xiaoyan an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. Zhang Yuhan, a beautiful woman, especially with those long legs, is definitely a girl who is the center of attention wherever she goes. But even though she is a girl who is never short of suitors, who would believe that she is actually chasing after Zhao Xiaoyan, who in her opinion has no redeeming features? Chapter 36, Do I look good? But the truth is right in front of them, and it was the girl who took the initiative to say it, so they couldn't help but believe it. Zhao Xiaoyan was very pleased to see the expressions on everyone's faces, and his male vanity was instantly filled. After leaving the barbecue restaurant, Guo Liang and Li Liwei excused themselves and left, while Zhao Xiaoyan walked slowly back to school with Zhang Yuhan. How did I do today? With no outsiders around, Zhang Yuhan's arm naturally went around Zhao Xiaoyan's arm, looking very intimate. This made Zhao Xiaoyan suffer. Zhang Yuhan was a beautiful woman with model-like height, and when she wore high heels, she was at least 185 centimeters tall. Zhao Xiaoyan stood next to her and looked a bit short. Brother Xiaoyan, where have you been the past 2 days? You didn't even call or WeChat me. Although the goal was to reach a 70% favorability rating, Zhao Xiaoyan was still a little uncomfortable with the intimacy they were displaying in public. After all, technically speaking, this was only the second time they had met. I've just been busy. Zhao Xiaoyan wasn't lying, he had been quite busy the past 2 days. What have you been up to lately? Zhao Xiaoyan asked casually. Zhang Yuhan said, I recently got a job for an auto show. The brand side requires me to wear a dress, saying that I need to look like a goddess in order to better fit their brand's tone. Buy clothes? Spend money? Zhao Xiaoyan looked at the time, it was just before 8 o'clock, and he directly pulled Zhang Yuhan and turned around, walking towards the parking lot. Brother Xiaoyan, where are you taking me? Don't worry about it, just follow. As soon as they reached the parking lot, Zhao Xiaoyan pulled Zhang Yuhan straight to the Ferrari 812 and, without saying a word, pressed the unlock button. Beep beep. Zhang Yuhan looked at the black Ferrari 812, her eyes wide with excitement. Brother Xiaoyan, is this your car? It's so cool. Zhao Xiaoyan opened the door and got in. Zhang Yuhan let out a little gasp, ran over to the side, pulled open the side, and strutted in with her long legs. It was Longsheng Plaza again. Zhao Xiaoyan found that he had recently had a run-in with Longsheng Plaza. This time, in just a few days, he had made several trips here. Before the system, the number of times he had walked into Longsheng in 3 years had not added up to as many as these few days. Zhang Yuhan's smile never left her face the moment she entered Longsheng Plaza. As a model, she naturally knows exactly what Longsheng Plaza is. After asking at the reception desk where to buy a dress, Zhao Xiaoyan took Zhang Yuhan directly to a brand dress shop on the second floor. Before the salesperson could say anything, Zhao Xiaoyan already waved his hand with practiced ease and said to Zhang Yuhan, go ahead. Zhang Yuhan was not shy, and chose a bright-colored V-neck long dress. Brother Xiaoyan, does it look good? Hello, this one is wrapped up. Brother Xiaoyan, doesn't this one clash with my skin tone? This one too. Brother Xiaoyan, isn't this one too plain? Bag it. Brother Xiaoyan. Swipe the card and pay. An hour later, Zhang Yuhan, beaming with happiness, was walking along the square corridor with her arms full of shopping bags. She was wearing gifts from her part-time job, most of which she had bought on Taobao. The cheaper ones cost a few hundred yuan, while the more expensive ones cost a maximum of 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. But none of these dresses today are less than 6 digits. This is definitely the most expensive time she has ever bought clothes. Zhao Xiaoyan is even happier and more blessed than him. If you want to talk about buying clothes, models can burn through money. But the 80x cashback reward also made Zhao Xiaoyan's account over 10 million after this wave. And Zhang Yuhan's favorability rating also directly increased by 10 points after she bought those clothes. Ding, target Zhang Yuhan's favorability plus 10, current favorability 80. Only 20 points away from 100, does this mean I have another chance to complete a complete comeback? Zhang Yuhan's gaze has changed now that she is looking at Zhao Xiaoyan, and she has taken Zhao Xiaoyan's arm very tightly, almost pressing her whole body against him. Zhao Xiaoyan is quite pleased to have his arm around such a beautiful woman, and his arm can even touch Zhang Yuhan's skin from time to time. Seeing this, Zhang Yuhan tightened her grip on Zhao Xiaoyan's arm even more, as if they were an inseparable couple. At this moment, Zhao Xiaoyan looked very handsome in her eyes, especially when paying the bill, even more handsome. A man who is rich and willing to spend money on you, how could she, Zhang Yuhan, let him go? At this moment, Zhang Yuhan already regarded Zhao Xiaoyan as the number one big fish in her pond, the key inspection object. Feeling an abnormality on his arm, Zhao Xiaoyan subconsciously looked over. Although Zhang Yuhan, who was wearing high heels, was quite a bit taller than Zhao Xiaoyan, it did not affect Zhao Xiaoyan's line of sight from peeking under her neck. Zhao Xiaoyan's eyes could not be moved. Suddenly, Zhang Yuhan suddenly turned her face and looked at Zhao Xiaoyan. Zhao Xiaoyan, who had been caught red-handed, immediately blushed and quickly looked away, looking straight ahead. Just as Zhao Xianyan thought that his rudeness would make Zhang Yuhan unhappy, Zhang Yuhan just smiled, didn't say anything, and then very appropriately pulled a little distance away. Only by dangling a man can you make him spend more money on you. Just as Zhao Xianyan and Zhang Yuhan were strolling around like lovers, suddenly, a man's voice sounded behind the two of them. Zhang Yuhan, what are you doing here? Zhao Xianyan didn't react immediately after hearing this voice, and he only felt his arm become empty. Looking up his arm, he realized that at some unknown time, Zhang Yuhan had let go of his hand. Zhang Yuhan turned around and saw a tall and handsome boy walking quickly with his hand in his hand. The boy was very tall, looking like he was at least 190 centimeters tall, and he also had a very good appearance. He belonged to the type of tall and handsome guys who were very popular with girls. After seeing the person coming, Zhao Xiaoyan's eyes fell on Zhang Yuhan's face. From Zhang Yuhan's appearance, it was obvious that this boy and her had an unusual relationship. Moreover, Zhang Yuhan's subconscious move of pulling her hand back just now made Zhao Xiaoyan feel very uncomfortable. When you need someone, you are close now that you've been caught, you immediately try to distance yourself? Zhao Xiaoyan frowned and didn't say anything, but looked at Zhang Yuhan. Zhao Xiaoyan saw that Zhang Yuhan's face was full of emotions, shock, embarrassment, and confusion. The guy stopped 2 steps away from Zhang Yuhan, gave Zhao Xiaoyan a hard stare, and then asked Lu Xinting in a somewhat interrogative tone. Didn't you say in a WeChat message that you weren't feeling well and were resting in the dormitory? Li Xiang, why are you here? The person who had come was one of Zhang Yuhan's suitors and also her classmate. Li Xiang was very angry. Chapter 37, the scene of Zhang Yuhan's social death. In the morning, he sent a WeChat message to Zhang Yuhan asking her out, but she said she didn't feel well. Zhang Yuhan was very concerned and told him to rest more and that he could contact her at any time if anything happened. But he never expected that Zhang Yuhan, who should have been resting in the dormitory at this time, was actually shopping with another man. What's more, Zhang Yuhan's hand was on the other man's arm, and her whole body was leaning against him. How could this not make him angry? Yuhan, why did you lie to me? You went on a date with another man behind my back. How could you do that to me? It was an open secret that Li Xiang was madly courting Zhang Yuhan. Although Zhang Yuhan had never explicitly agreed to be his girlfriend, she had never refused to go to the movies or go on dates with him. In Li Xiang's heart, Zhang Yuhan was already his woman. At this moment, he felt the sting of betrayal. This is. Zhang Yuhan looked at Li Xiang and then Zhao Xianyan, and didn't know what to say. She was now in a dilemma. Before that night at the bar, Li Xiang had definitely been her top choice. He was tall, considered handsome, and came from a good family. Although he was a bit of a playboy, he would definitely make a good boyfriend. If there had been no better options, Zhang Yuhan would have jumped into his arms without hesitation. Although Zhao Xianyan had refreshed her perception that night, it was impossible for her to let him kick Li Xiang out. She had thought that the more she got to know Zhao Xianyan, the more she would understand how wealthy he was, so that she could make a better choice. But just now, Zhao Xianyan had taken her shopping for an expensive dress that she could not afford, and she had almost fallen for him. But it was just coincidental that she had run into Li Xiang here. But when faced with Li Xiang's questioning, Zhang Yuhan didn't know how to explain. If she explained to Li Xiang, she would undoubtedly be putting down Zhao Xianyan, which would upset Zhao Xianyan. She had only just had such a big sweetener today, and she really didn't want to give it up. But if she didn't explain to Li Xiang, the other party was a real second-generation rich kid, and he was also the fish she had been raising for a long time. One was angry, the other was making a decision. Of the three, Zhao Xianyan had the best attitude, looking at the two in front of him with an outsider's expression. Seeing Zhang Yuhan stammering, Li Xiang's anger was about to explode. Seeing Zhao Xianyan, who was watching the show with interest, Li Xiang's anger suddenly found an outlet. Who are you? What are you doing here with Yuhan? Zhao Xianyan didn't expect the first battle to actually burn itself on him. But he wasn't at all intimidated. Oh, I didn't do anything. I just felt that Zhang Yuhan didn't seem to have any nice clothes, so I thought about buying her some. Zhao Xianyan said, and pointed to the handbag Zhang Yuhan was holding. As for who I am, you'd better ask Yuhan that. Zhang Yuhan could naturally feel the meaning behind Zhao Xianyan's words when she heard them. After hesitating for a moment, as if having made a major decision, Zhang Yuhan put her hand back on Zhao Xianyan's arm. Li Xiang, let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend. Please don't bother me anymore. Zhao Xianyan naturally didn't want to lose out, so he lifted his hand and put it directly around Zhang Yuhan's waist, pulling her closer to him. Zhang Yuhan let out a little cry and clung to Zhao Xianyan. Seeing that the boy was about to speak, Zhao Xianyan simply put his arm around Zhang Yuhan a little tighter and then asked the boy with a smile, "Don't say things like I don't believe it anymore, it's so cliché." Zhang Yuhan, on the other hand, gave Zhao Xianyan a flirtatious look. The boy saw this and opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say, so he turned his head and walked away dispiritedly. Seeing the boy leave, Zhang Yuhan let out a heavy breath and her face looked a little lost. Then she looked at Zhao Xianyan again and said coquettishly, "Brother Xianyan, you're so bad. You actually ate someone else's tofu in front of them. What's the situation with that person?" Zhao Xianyan laughed and asked. "A guy who used to chase me started to seem pretty good, so I wanted to investigate him more." Zhao Xianyan's expression remained unchanged. "Is he your pet fish?" Zhang Yuhan was a little panicked when she heard this. "No, Brother Xianyan, he's just a classmate of ours." Zhao Xianyan didn't believe her and just looked at her. "Brother Xianyan." Zhang Yuhan changed her position, put her arms around Zhao Xianyan from the front, and said, "Brother Xianyan, don't be angry. I'll explain everything when we get back. He only likes you." Zhao Xianyan looked at Zhang Yuhan and said, "If you really choose me, I hope you'll only have me in your heart, and your body must be faithful to me." Zhang Yuhan nodded, "Yes, I only belong to you. I need to make something clear to you first. I can give you the life you want, and I can give you a lot of money, but I can't give you a title. However, I can never accept betrayal. And if you really want to be with me, then let go of your pond. I allow you to worship money, but only my money. I don't want to see you raising fish anymore. If you can do all of this, then from today onwards, you will be my woman. I can buy you a house, a car, and give you a lot of money. I'll give you 1 day to deal with your pond. When you're done, come back to me." For a gold-worshipping woman, Zhao Xianyan really didn't have much time to deal with those messy relationships. After leaving Longsheng Plaza, Zhao Xianyan took Zhang Yuhan straight back to school. In fact, even if Zhao Xianyan took Zhang Yuhan away now, just based on Zhang Yuhan's already 80 favorability, he was convinced that if he asked, she would agree without hesitation. However, after Sun Yalan's case, where he didn't reach 100 favorability and was rejected, resulting in not being able to get the reward of a complete system reversal, Zhao Xianyan decided to put it off for now. There's also the fact that he has actually only known Zhang Yuhan for a very short time, only the second time today, and that the time he has known her is too short. After getting the system, Zhao Xianyan's mentality also began to change within just a few days. If he was in the past, his heart was bound to Zhuan, and he was a complete dog licker. Now, however, he was already developing in the direction of the Sea King. Before him were Sun Yalan and He Fei, two people who had actually had a relationship with him, followed by Zhang Yuhan and Lu Xinting, two gold-digging green tea girls, and behind them were Zhou Jiaying and Su Yener. As for how far the last four people will go with him, Zhao Xianyan doesn't force it, and just goes with the flow. But there is one thing, as long as they are his women, there may be more or less of a difference emotionally, but he will always treat his women well. Similarly, as a man, he doesn't want his women to be fickle and keep him on a leash. Chapter 38, Private VIP Customer Service. If that was the case, Zhao Xianyan would not hesitate to cut it off. What happened to Juan could only happen once, and there could never be a second time. Giving Zhang Yuhan time to deal with it was also a good opportunity for Zhao Xianyan to calm down and think about how to handle his relationship with Zhang Yuhan. Within his own financial capabilities, Zhang Yuhan's favorability rating had reached 90. It could even be said that it had reached the value of a lover. But relationships take time to develop. Zhang Yuhan's favorability rating has risen so quickly, and it's all because of the money. In the end, she fell in love with Zhao Xianyan, the one who spent money on her. But Zhao Xianyan didn't have any qualms about it. After all, Zhang Yuhan, like Lu Xinting, was a gold-digging green tea girl, but she was just a tool for him to get cash back. As for whether he liked Zhang Yuhan, he could only say that he didn't dislike her. Or rather, he likes Zhang Yuhan's appearance, especially those long legs. Of course, possessiveness is something that every man has. I may not like it, but no one else can take it, let alone play with two boats. If Zhang Yuhan is still messing around with other men, Zhao Xianyan will not hesitate to kick her out. That night, because He Fei said that she would have to stay at the hospital to take care of her younger brother, Zhao Xianyan simply did not go back to the villa at Longsheng Houding, but went back to the rental house by himself. After all, he had paid for the room, so it would be a waste not to stay. Besides, Zhao Xianyan had no intention of canceling the lease, so he might as well use it as a place to stay. The next morning, Zhao Xianyan was woken up by a phone call. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Zhao Xianyan's tone carried the characteristic sleepiness of someone who had just woken up. Hello, Mr. Zhao Xianyan, this is Yi Lingshan, the VLP Customer Service Manager at the Dahua Bank Lingzhou branch. Yi Lingshan was very depressed. She had just started work that morning, but the bank manager's phone had rung. Looking at the name of the bank manager on the screen, Yi Lingshan really wanted to hang up. Calling her at this time definitely meant nothing good, probably asking if she had closed the deal with the boss she had met yesterday. This was not the first time it had happened. The bank manager often asked her to go out with him to entertain a certain boss or rich kid. Her colleagues are envious and say that Yi Lingshan is valued by the bank manager and is the focus of training in the bank. In fact, she knows that they all say behind her back that she has helped the bank attract so many deposits by selling her charms. But she swears to God that she really hasn't. Although those bosses and rich second generations see her and look like they want to eat her up, and some have even offered her 100,000 yuan in private, she really hasn't agreed to it and hasn't slept with anyone. Sometimes, she is also very distressed, blaming herself for being pretty. If she didn't have this pretty face, she might not have had so many troubles and gossip. But appearance is a double-edged sword. If she didn't have it, she might not have been able to get into the bank that everyone envies, and she wouldn't have been able to get a bonus of 20-30,000 yuan every month. Seeing that the phone was ringing again, Yi Lingshan had to press the answer button. President, I'm sorry, last night. Yi, let's not talk about last night. I have an urgent matter here that needs your immediate attention. The bank manager interrupted Yi Lingshan directly, speaking rapidly. I just received a report that our bank has suddenly gained several billion in personal customers recently. You need to contact the customers immediately to find out their information. With so much personal deposits, they are definitely big customers. What? Personal customers? Bank manager, how can we not know that we have such big personal customers? Cough, don't say you didn't know, I just found out too. Never mind that now, you need to get in touch with the customer as soon as possible. I'll send the number to your phone. After the call ended, Yi Lingshan quickly received a call from the bank manager. 138, Zhao Xianyan. What the bank manager just said was actually very clear, which was to ask Yi Lingshan to retain this person and make him a stable long-term customer of the bank. Some people may think that it's just a matter of billions of deposits. But you have to know that banks prefer individual customers with billions of deposits to corporate customers with billions or even hundreds of billions of deposits. Why? Because deposits from individuals are stable. The deposits of corporate customers may be large, but they are also highly liquid. They cannot be considered stable bank deposits. But it's different with individual customers. Billions of deposits are there, and as long as there are no major changes, there will basically be no major fluctuations. So corporate customers are unimportant? Of course not. Banks would prefer corporate customers to take out loans from them, because that would be more profitable for the banks. Taking a deep breath, Yi Lingshan dialed Zhao Xianyan's number. Oh, it's the bank. I don't want a credit card and I don't need a small loan. Zhao Xianyan had received many calls from banks before, but they were either selling credit cards or asking if he wanted a small loan, with details about interest rates and so on. It was very annoying. Yi Lingshan quickly said with her phone in hand, Mr. Zhao, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sell you a credit card or a loan. It's like this, during our system self-check, we discovered that your deposits in our bank have reached 100 million yuan. So according to our bank's regulations for managing large individual depositors, in order to better serve you, we will assign you an exclusive and personal bank VLP customer service manager to provide you with 24-hour financial services. Oh, I see, that's fine. Zhao Xianyan suddenly realized that he really didn't know that banks had this kind of service. Sure enough, the world of the rich is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. So, is my exclusive customer service you? Zhao Xianyan asked. Yes, Mr. Zhao, I am your exclusive VLP customer service. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Yi Lingshan, and this number is my mobile phone number. You can contact me at any time, and I will be happy to serve you. Oh. Okay, then I'll hang up if there's nothing else. Seeing that Zhao Xianyan was about to hang up, Yi Lingshan quickly said, Mr. Zhao, please hold on a moment. Zhao Xianyan stopped what he was doing and asked, what else is there? It's like this, in order to better serve you, I would like to arrange a meeting with you first. When is a good time for you? The bank manager said that we need to understand the personal situation of this customer. The bank also needs to meet with major customers from time to time to get to know them better. Therefore, she planned to pay an impromptu visit to this new customer. Zhao Xiaoyan thought about it for a moment, and since he was sure he didn't have anything else to do today, he said, "Okay, come over now. Add me as a friend and I'll send you the address." "Okay, Mr. Zhao." Chapter 39. I'm just a passerby. 20 minutes later. Lingshan looked at the place Zhao Xiaoyan had sent her, and then looked at the self-built house in front of her. She never would have imagined that the bank's big client actually lived in a place like this. Could this be the so-called great seclusion in the city? Or, is this big client the landlord here, who has made hundreds of millions of dollars in rent? Doubts aside, Lingshan picked up the phone and sent a message to Zhao Xiaoyan, telling her that she had arrived. She received a reply quickly, "You wait for me, I'll be right down." Lingshan waited by the roadside, casually and aimlessly surveying her surroundings. There was actually nothing to see, all being a self-built house, or tall or short, or old or new. The tenants in this area are also very mixed, including students from Lingzhou University and migrant workers, making it a typical urban village. Suddenly, a black object appeared in her line of sight, which immediately caught her attention, and she subconsciously walked up to it. It was a black sports car, which was quietly parked at a relatively wide intersection. With its cool shape, elegant paintwork, and the familiar Ferrari logo on the bonnet, Lingshan knew that the car must be very expensive, at least worth a few million. The urban village is indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Lingshan couldn't help but sigh. First there was Mr. Zhao, with a personal savings of 10 digits. Now there was someone else who casually parked $1 million Ferrari at the intersection. Although looking at a person's wealth by their car is not accurate, it is generally not far off. Anyone who can afford this kind of car must also be rich. I just don't know who the owner is. It would be great if I could develop this person into a customer. Lingshan's occupational disease had struck again. "Hey, who told you to touch this car?" Suddenly, a voice came from behind Lingshan, which startled her and made her hand immediately move away from the hood of the car. When she looked back, she saw a group of people walking towards the car. At the forefront of the group was a man in his late 20s or early 30s, dressed in a suit, with a slicked-back hairdo and shiny leather shoes, looking like a successful man. Next to the man in the suit was a woman in a bright red business suit. The woman's hair had obviously been specially styled, and although she was only average-looking, she walked with an air of indifference. Behind these two were a few people dressed in ordinary clothes. Some were holding lights for filming, some were holding reflectors, and there was a long-haired boy with a face full of acne fiddling with a camera in his hands. Seeing this group of people walking over, Lingshan quickly apologized, embarrassed, "I'm just saying that this car is pretty." The man in the suit walked up and, seeing Lingshan dressed in professional attire and with a pretty face, couldn't help but become on guard, asking, "Are you also in this line of work?" "Huh?" Although she didn't know which line of work the man in the suit was talking about, she still waved her hands and said, No, I work for United Overseas Bank." "Oh, from the bank." The man in the suit obviously relaxed his tone and, without waiting for a response, walked away, telling her not to stand there. Lingshan took 2 steps back and asked, "Sir, is this your car?" When the man in the suit saw Lingshan asking, his eyebrows twitched slightly, and he coughed. He tugged at the collar of his suit and said, "Of course it is. What's the matter?" Seeing that the man in the suit was really the owner of the car, Lingshan quickly flashed a professional smile, took out a business card from her bag and handed it to him. "Hello, sir, I'm the key account manager at Lingzhou Bank. May I ask your name?" The man in the suit took the card, looked at the words on it, and couldn't help but look up and down at Lingshan again. The dark gray professional attire was cut and tailored well. Under a pair of flesh-colored stockings, she was wearing a pair of black high heels, making Lingshan's already good figure even more beautiful and upright. Her fair skin and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose added an air of intellectual maturity. Due to the makeup, her skin is not only fair and tender, but the touch of vermilion on her lips makes her look even more seductive, giving people an urge to kiss her. This woman is simply a beauty who combines intellect and sex appeal. If you want intellect, you can have intellect. If you want to be mature and sexy, you can do it with a flick of the hand. As he watched, the man in the suit's heart was pricked even more, and it itched. "My surname is Wang." "Hello, Mr. Wang. Our bank has recently launched a number of financial management projects aimed at major clients. I was wondering if you have ever done business with us?" Upon hearing this, the man in the suit knew that Lingshan was soliciting business, and asked with a busy air, How much is needed to be considered your major client? A customer with deposits of 10 million or more will do. 10 million. The man in the suit put on a difficult look. 10 million is not a difficult task, it's just. Hey, we've got the lights all set up, are you guys going to shoot or what? If you're not going to shoot, we're leaving. At this point, the long-haired man, who had been fiddling with the camera, shouted discontentedly at the man in the suit. Oh, right away. The man in the suit responded, then said to Yi Lingshan, you wait here, we'll talk later. Okay, we can start. Seeing that the other person was busy, Yi Lingshan didn't want to say anything more and had to put it off. Okay, let's start, the long-haired man ordered. In front of the camera, the man in the suit makes a gesture that is just right for getting out of a car and closing the door, then flashes a confident smile. Success is never achieved by waiting. You can only reap the rewards if you boldly go for it. I was just a small, insignificant person before, but since joining this race, within 1 year I have managed to earn my first 10 million, and I bought this sports car that was once out of my reach. I can do it, and you can do it too. Good, very good, you've passed. The long-haired man nodded in satisfaction and took a few more photos. Yes, look confident, and touch the roof of the car with your right hand. Very good, lean back against the bonnet, and lift your left foot and place it near the number plate frame. Very good. Come, let's take one more photo, this time. As she looked, Yi Lingshan felt a little bit uncomfortable. Suddenly, a strong smell of steamed buns wafted up to her nose. Looking sideways, she saw a guy in t-shirt and jeans, who had stood next to her without her noticing. The smell of steamed buns came from the steamed buns in the guy's hands. Seeing Yi Lingshan looking at him, the guy handed her the bag of steamed buns in his hands and asked, have you eaten? Do you want to try one? Are you with them? Yi Lingshan didn't take the bag, just looked at the guy and asked. No, I'm just passing by. Oh. Chapter 40. Are you sure this car is yours? What are they doing? They're probably businessmen. At this time, the man in the suit had also finished shooting and replaced the professional woman to start shooting. Seeing that Yi Lingshan had not left, the man in the suit walked over to Yi Lingshan again. That Yi Lingshan, the big client wealth management project you just mentioned, I'm still quite interested in. Why don't we find a place to talk about it properly? After we've talked, these are all non-issues. The man in the suit looked at Yi Lingshan and smiled. Oh, I don't have time today, maybe some other time. Yi Lingshan naturally understood what the man in the suit meant, but after all, he was the one who could afford such an expensive car, so she didn't want to offend him too much, so she politely refused. A flash of greed in the man's eyes, and with a turn of his eyes, Yi, look at that car, I earned it back in a year. Do you want to follow me? I promise I won't mistreat you. This is an offer of profit. Unfortunately, she, Yi Lingshan, has heard this kind of thing too many times. In the future, this kind of uncertain wording is the usual vocabulary used by those men who want to seduce her. I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'm waiting for my client. Waiting for your client here? The man in the suit suddenly laughed. What kind of clients would there be here? A bunch of migrant workers. Yi Lingshan was about to retort when she heard the young man eating a baozi next to her suddenly yell. Hey, where are you putting your feet? It was just over there by the Ferrari. The professional woman who was filming leaned back against the hood of the car, and her 10-centimeter high heels were about to be placed on the hood when she was suddenly scared by the young man's yell and put them back on the ground. Who the hell are you to yell like that? The long-haired man puffed up angrily and poked his head out from behind the SLR camera, his face full of pimples turning red. The suit-wearing man closest to the young man also frowned and pointed at the young man, scolding him, Hey, what are you shouting for? Is that your car? Why are you so excited? The young man sneered, Do you think that car is yours? The suit-wearing man straightened up, Of course it's mine. Then he said to the long-haired man, Don't mind this loser, just keep filming. The career woman gave the young man a cold stare, lifted her foot and was about to continue striking the pose she had just thought of, but just then, the lights of the quiet Ferrari suddenly came on. This sudden change scared the career woman, and she almost fell forward. The arrogant suit man also revealed a nervous expression and looked left and right along the road. At this moment, the person who was most surprised was Yi Lingshan, who was standing next to the young man. Because she saw that the young man next to her had an extra set of car keys in his hand, and the logo on the car keys was, surprisingly, Ferrari. The young man walked over to the driver's side, grabbed the door handle, turned around and looked at the man in the suit. Are you sure this car is yours? After saying that, in the stunned expression of the man in the suit, he opened the car door and sat down in it. A moment later, the engine of the sports car, which had been started, emitted a low rumble. Seeing the owner arrive, the long-haired man and the others, who had been so arrogant just now, had long since run away without a trace. The window was rolled down, and Mr. Yun looked at the man in a suit, who was still in a state of shock, before looking at Yi Lingshan, who was also surprised. "Miss Yi, get in the car. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting." Yi Lingshan. Sitting in the passenger seat of the Ferrari A12, Yi Lingshan still hasn't recovered from the shock. You are Mr. Zhao Xianyan Zhao?" Yi Lingshan asked the young boy in front of her. "Well. What? Not like it?" Zhao Xianyan teased. Yi Lingshan nodded honestly. "Well, it's not what I expected. I thought you would be someone in their 30s or 40s. Haha, does my voice sound that old?" "No, I just didn't expect someone with so much personal savings to be so young." Zhao Xianyan thought that Yi Lingshan was quite good, at least she told the truth. In fact, Zhao Xianyan went downstairs quickly after receiving Yi Lingshan's call. But he was a little hungry, so he took some time to buy some breakfast. Then when he walked over to his car, he noticed that there were a few people using his car as a prop for filming. Zhao Xianyan was prepared to go up and stop them, but when he saw Yi Lingshan, the system's voice sounded. "Found a target that can be reversed. Target, Yi Lingshan. Height, 164. Age, 31. Face value, 87. Body, 99. Purity, 99. Favorability, 0. Ding, the target's favorability towards the host is below 80, which meets the binding conditions. Bind or not." Since a new target had been discovered and he had not finished eating the buns in his hands yet, Zhao Xianyan walked over like a passerby. He also wanted to see what kind of person his new target was. The Porsche 812 soon pulled into the Longsheng Haoding Villa. After entering Villa 8, Yi Lingshan was shocked again, and she felt more and more that the young man in front of her was extraordinary. With personal savings of several billion, driving a sports car worth over $1 million, and living in a villa worth around $100 million, this was a proper invisible rich man. Sitting on the sofa, Yi Lingshan sat down and respectfully began the purpose of her trip. In fact, Yi Lingshan did not have anything particularly important to do this time, except to establish contact with Zhao Xianyan on behalf of the bank and sort out the relationship with the customer. "Mr. Zhao, our bank has launched a special wealth management project service for individual high-value customers like you. I wonder if you are interested in entrusting your deposits to our bank to help you manage your wealth. Making money with customers' money is also one of the means for banks to get rich." Zhao Xianyan thought about it for a while, but decided that he didn't need it yet. He would just keep it in the bank for now, so that he could withdraw it when he needed it. Although he had a cashback system in place, he still had to pay the principal out of his own pocket. If he put it all into wealth management, he would be at a loss when he needed it. Yi Lingshan didn't say anything more. After all, Zhao Xianyan was young, but he had already built such a large family business, so he must have his own way of making money and would not care about the bank's low-return wealth management products. After chatting for a while, Yi Lingshan felt that the purpose of her visit had been achieved, so she got up to say goodbye to Zhao Xianyan. Not long after Yi Lingshan left, He Fei returned from the hospital. Seeing He Fei's haggard face, Zhao Xianyan felt a pang of concern for her for no reason. "Why don't you hire a caregiver?" "No, a caregiver doesn't know my family as well as I do. My mother has already gone to the hospital. The doctor said that if there's nothing else in the afternoon, I can go home first." He Fei yawned. "I'll go upstairs and take a shower first. I have to go to the hospital in a while." Zhao Xianyan was taken aback. "You just got back and you're leaving already? Isn't your mother at the hospital? You should just rest at home." Chapter 41. Zhou Jiaying asks for help. "I'm not at ease leaving my mother alone," He Fei said, then looked at Zhao Xianyan apologetically. "I'm sorry." Zhao Xianyan knew what He Fei meant, gently embraced her in his arms and said, "Don't say sorry to me, we have a long life together. If there's anything you need help with at home, just let me know. By the way, is there enough money? I can transfer some more to you." "No, there's enough money. The amount you've given me before and after is more than enough." At this, He Fei's eyes suddenly filled with tears. "Xianyan, thank you. If you hadn't given me so much money, my brother might have. I will definitely repay you in the future." "How are you going to repay me?" Zhao Xianyan looked at her with a wicked smile. He Fei immediately blushed. "Nasty. I heard that people who practice dance have very flexible bodies. Zhao Xianyan teased the beauty in his arms with a smile. He Fei's face turned even redder, and she bit Zhao Xianyan's arm lightly. Biting you to death, you lisp. At this moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. He Fei, like a deer that has been startled, immediately jumped out of Zhao Xianyan's embrace, looking as if she had suddenly remembered something, and said, "Ah, it might be Jiaying's sister coming." "What? Zhou Jiaying?" Zhao Xianyan's movements froze. He Fei nodded. "She called me this morning and said she wanted to come to the villa in the afternoon to chat with you." "Chat with me? What about?" Zhao Xianyan was even more confused. "She didn't say anything on the phone, so you can ask her yourself later." He Fei touched her flushed cheeks. Zhao Xianyan looked at her and said, "If Zhou Jiaying is coming, why didn't you say so earlier?" "I forgot," He Fei said nonchalantly. In fact, she hadn't forgotten, but for some reason, she just didn't want to tell Zhao Xianyan. The reason she hadn't called Zhao Xianyan was that she didn't want to tell him about it, and she thought he'd be better off not knowing. In short, she just didn't want Zhao Xianyan to get in touch with Zhou Jiaying. Could it be that she was actually jealous? When Zhao Xianyan opened the villa door, Zhou Jiaying had already been waiting there for 3 or 4 minutes. Today, Zhou Jiaying was still wearing a professional outfit, but it wasn't the black one she'd worn last time, it was white. A white silk blouse paired with a white skirt suit, it made her waist look slender. She was wearing a pair of thin flesh-colored stockings on her legs, and a pair of white high heels that were translucent and spotless. Zhao Xianyan really felt that Zhou Jiaying looked beautiful when she wore professional attire, and it made her look high class. When others wear professional attire, they may look like a salesperson, but when she wears this, she gives off the feeling of a company executive. Indeed, clothes don't pick the person, but pick the temperament. "Zhou Xuejie, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting." Zhao Xianyan opened the door while saying this, and stepped aside to let Zhou Jiaying in. Once inside, Zhou Jiaying scanned the villa with her eyes, and a moment of desolation appeared in her eyes. She had been here several times after Zhou Bohai bought it. Like Zhou Bohai, she also liked it very much. Both the environment and the size hit the spot for her. But now things are different, and the owner has changed. "I never thought that when I stepped into this place again, I would be a guest. Life is sometimes so unpredictable." While Zhou Jiaying was looking at the villa, Zhao Xianyan was looking at her from behind. The crotch of her professional skirt was tightly wrapped, forming a perfect pear shape. Zhao Xianyan's mind unconsciously popped up the old saying from the countryside: "This girl has a big butt and is fertile, she will definitely give birth to a son in the future." "Jiaying, you're here." He Fei, who had just tidied her hair, walked out of the villa and saw Zhao Xianyan peeking at Zhou Jiaying. After cursing in her heart, she greeted Zhou Jiaying enthusiastically with a smile on her face. Zhou Jiaying also showed 2 dimples, looked at the two of them, and said teasingly, "I hope my sudden visit didn't disturb you." This caused He Fei to blush, and she said to her sister, "Jiaying, you're teasing us again." He Fei's behavior was already a form of indirect admission. This made Zhao Xianyan's eyebrows rise unconsciously. The three sat down on the sofa, and looking like they had just woken up, they acted like the hostess, serving tea and water, bringing fruit, and then He Fei sat down next to him, put her arm around him. Zhao Xianyan concluded that this girl definitely had a problem. According to her personality, she would deliberately keep her distance from others in front of others. But this time, she acted contrary to her usual self and acted very close to him. Even Zhou Jiaying, who was sitting across from him, noticed the abnormality and teased, "Fei Fei, I know you two are close, but you don't have to show off your affection in front of me, a single guy, do you?" "No way," she said, but she wrapped her arm around Zhao Xianyan's arm even tighter, as if she was declaring her sovereignty. "You call this affection? I heard that your junior bought this villa for you for 100 million yuan just to please you." He Fei laughed and leaned her head against Zhao Xianyan's chest, seemingly complaining, "He just loves to spend money recklessly." "Damn, what's wrong with this girl today? It's so obvious." Coughing, Zhao Xianyan asked, "I wonder what Miss Zhou is here for this time?" Zhou Jiaying glanced at He Fei, who shook her head lightly. After carefully choosing her words, Zhou Jiaying spoke, "I'll get straight to the point. I've come to ask for help from my junior." "Help? I don't know if you've heard of Bohai Construction?" Zhao Xianyan shook his head, indicating that he hadn't heard of it. Zhou Jiaying was not embarrassed and said, "This Bohai Construction was founded by my father's company. Our Bohai Construction is not a large enterprise, so it's normal that you haven't heard of it. After more than 10 years of development, our company has grown to a certain scale and is valued at more than 1 billion yuan. However, we have recently encountered some problems and need a relatively large sum of money to stabilize the current situation. That is why I thought of you, Zhao Shuedi, and hope that you can help." Zhou Jiaying, as if transformed into a salesman, gave a brief introduction to the whole matter. As Zhou Jiaying said, Bohai Construction is not a large company, but it is not exactly small either. It mainly does real estate construction business. To put it bluntly, it does construction work issued by real estate development companies. And their largest partner is Longsheng Group. In recent years, thanks to the cooperation with Longsheng Group, Bohai Construction has gradually accumulated capital and begun to grow stronger, forming a group operation model. Of course, the main industry is still centered around real estate construction. Chapter 42. So that's a yes? But starting in the second half of last year, for reasons unknown, Longsheng Group, with which we had cooperated for more than 10 years, began to deliberately suppress us in every way, without completely cutting off our orders. My father's attempt to take over Longsheng's business has led to higher costs for us and a gradual decline in profit margins. Recently, for some reason, the suppliers we work with have begun to collectively demand payment in advance from us. We urgently need a sum of money to inject into the company. Otherwise, our capital chain may break. Zhao Xiaonian is just an ordinary college student, and he barely understood what Zhou Jiaying was saying. When he heard the name Longsheng Group, Zhao Xiaonian's eyes blinking unconsciously. 10 minutes later, Zhou Jiaying explained the situation. "So, I don't know if Zhao Shuedi can help us." Zhou Jiaying looked at Zhao Xiaonian, and her heart followed. To be honest, despite all the confidence she just expressed in her family's group, the Zhou group is actually in a very dangerous situation. If no outside capital enters within the next 2 months, the group will not just face development problems, but also survival problems. If not for this, Zhou Dihai would not have sold the villa to supplement capital. In fact, what she said today is strictly speaking a commercial secret, which is equivalent to exposing her Achilles heel. If Zhao Xiaonian is a person with ulterior motives, all he needs to do is spread the word, and it would be the end of Bohai Construction. But in order to get Zhao Xiaonian's help to save Bohai Construction, Zhou Jiaying had to take a chance. She gambled that Zhao Xiaonian would help her, and that he wouldn't tell anyone about it. Zhao Xiaonian, on the other hand, didn't think about it that much. He heard 2 things. First, Bohai Construction mainly relies on Longsheng Group. And second, Bohai Construction needs money, which means Zhou Jiaying needs money. However, one thing he is very clear about is that Zhou Jiaying is a locked target that can get him cashback, and now the favorability is 3, which means 3 times the cashback. Zhao Xiaonian saw Zhou Jiaying's nervous expression and tried to ease the tension with a smile. "Hee, Miss Zhou, don't be so nervous. You've said so much, can I understand that as long as I give you money, the matter can be resolved? Yes, at least it can temporarily get us out of the current predicament and give us a chance to catch our breath." Zhou Jiaying didn't expect Zhao Xiaonian to be so direct, but what he said was the truth. "How much money do you need?" Zhao Xiaonian said this, not Bohai Construction. Because only if Zhou Jiaying spends money will there be cashback, and if it's given to the Zhou group, he'll just have to pay out of his own pocket. Zhou Jiaying calculated in his heart, hesitated, and then gritted his teeth and held up 3 fingers, 300 million. 300 million is enough to get Bohai Construction out of its current predicament. It is more than enough to pay off the suppliers. Only 300 million? Zhao Xiaonian was a little disappointed. He had expected a much higher figure and had hoped to earn more cashback. But with 300 million, he could only earn 900 million in cashback, and he would only earn 600 million himself. Zhou Jiaying saw that Zhao Xiaonian was not saying anything and thought that he was hesitating. After all, 300 million is not a small sum. Biting his lower lip, Zhou Jiaying threw out his last bargaining chip: "We are willing to use 30% of our equity as collateral for a period of 3 years. This is already our greatest sincerity. If Zhao Shuedi is willing to do us this favor, we can sign the mortgage contract right away." Collateralized equity. This was also the decision Zhou Dihai and Zhou Jiaying had discussed. They needed external capital, but what they needed was a capital infusion, not the purchase of equity by external capital. Zhou Dihai built Bohai Construction from scratch. As a businessman, he has seen too many cases where external capital came in and took over, kicking the founder out. He absolutely would not allow Bohai Construction to become like that one day. Bohai Construction was born with the surname Zhou, and even if it goes bankrupt, it must still bear the Zhou surname. Therefore, he is willing to take out 30% of the equity as collateral. It is collateral, not a transfer. He believes that as long as Bohai Construction can survive this crisis, it will definitely rise again in the future, even stronger than before. Seeing Zhou Jiaying's nervous expression, Zhao Xiaoyan smiled and said, "Okay, I understand. This way, there's no need to sign the mortgage for the 30% stake. I'll transfer the money to you right now." Saying this, Zhao Xiaoyan took out his mobile phone and said, "By the way, Miss Shou, give me your bank card account number." You agreed? She was still trying to figure out how to convince Zhao Xiaoyan to go ahead. After all, this was a matter of 300 million yuan. In fact, although taking out 30% of the equity as collateral seemed to show a lot of sincerity, any businessman would know the underlying cause and effect. If Bohai Construction survived, the 30% equity as collateral would just pass through the hands of others and return to Zhao Xiaoyan. But if Bohai Construction does not survive, or even goes bankrupt, then even if 30% of the shares are pledged, it is just a piece of worthless paper. Zhao Xiaoyan took out his phone and said, "Right, Miss Shou, give me your bank card account number." He wants to finalize this transaction as soon as possible. Zhou Jiaying is still in a daze. She is trying to remember what she just told Zhao Xiaoyan. Why did the other party decide to bring in 300 million in investment for the group in less than 10 minutes? And where did this junior colleague of hers come from, who just spent more than 100 million a few days ago and is now offering 300 million with a relaxed air? My goodness, how rich is this person? Seeing that Zhou Jiaying was still in a daze and hadn't heard her, Zhao Xiaoyan waved her hand in front of her face. Zhou Xuejie. Ah? Zhou Jiaying's thoughts were brought back and she asked, "What?" Zhao Xiaoyan pointed to his phone and said, "Zhou Xuejie, could you please give me your bank card number so I can transfer the money to you?" "What?" "Oh, the company's bank card number, right?" Zhou Jiaying quickly took out her phone and looked for the company's bank account number. It can't be the company's bank account number. Hearing that the other party actually wanted to give her the company's bank account number, Zhao Xiaoyan immediately stopped her and said, "It's fine if you give me your personal account number, I'll just transfer it to you." That was a close call. If I had transferred the money to the company account, it wouldn't have been considered spending on the goddess, and I wouldn't have been able to earn cash back. What? My personal account? 300 million to my personal account? Zhou Jiaying stood up suddenly, not believing her ears. Zhao Xiaoyan felt that the goddess he had a secret crush on had a hearing problem, and at such a young age, she had a hearing impairment. Chapter 43. Hurry up, it's urgent. Yes, I want your personal account. But, this is 300 million, are you sure you want to transfer it to my personal account? Zhou Jiaying looked at Zhao Xiaoyan in disbelief. Zhao Xiaoyan became a little impatient and said in a threatening tone, "Senior, just hurry up. If you don't give it to me, I won't vote." "Yes, I'll give it to you right away." As expected, the threat worked. In a minute, Zhao Xiaoyan entered the amount 300 million.00 and clicked confirm. However, an embarrassing situation arose. The transfer success that would appear every time before did not appear this time, and instead there was a small line of text. Due to the huge amount of funds involved, in order to prevent misoperation and other situations, manual intervention will be required to confirm. Zhao Xiaoyan. Seeing Zhao Xiaoyan's appearance, Zhou Jiaying's heart inexplicably skipped a beat. It can't be that he's yellow. "Zhao Xiaoyan, what's this?" Zhou Jiaying asked carefully. Zhao Xiaoyan turned the phone screen towards Zhou Jiaying and said, "The bank said it needs to be manually reviewed." Seeing this, Zhou Jiaying's heart eased again, and she smiled and said, "That's right, for fund transfers over a certain amount, the bank needs to manually review them." Zhao Xiaoyan thought about it for a moment. It seemed that he had never transferred more than 100 million yuan at a time before, and the most he had ever done was transfer 1 million yuan. Even when he bought the villa last time, he used a credit card. At this point, Zhou Jiaying didn't know whether she was explaining to Zhao Xiaoyan or comforting herself, and said, "The review during the day will be faster. You should expect to be contacted in about 10 minutes. Bank? That's right." Zhao Xiaoyan took the phone and dialed a number he found. The call was quickly connected. "Hello, Mr. Zhao Xiaoyan, this is Yi Lingshan." "Hello, Manager Yi. I have a transfer here, and I'm in a hurry, so could you please have your bank approve it quickly? But hurry, don't delay me from making money." Yi Lingshan quickly said on the phone, "Mr. Zhao, here's the thing. May I ask why you want to transfer this money out? It would be best if you didn't transfer it out." The bank manager told Yi Lingshan to go find Zhao Xiaoyan, who was after the money in Zhao Xiaoyan's account, hoping to convince Zhao Xiaoyan to leave the money in the bank so that the bank's deposit target for the year would be secure. But just as she finished talking, it wasn't even noon yet, and Zhao Xiaoyan was going to transfer out hundreds of millions of dollars. Wasn't this slapping her own face and treating her like a fool? Although Yi Lingshan was very angry, the customer is king, and she could only try to retain this amount as much as possible. Zhao Xiaoyan, cough, just don't say so much. Hurry up, I'm really in a hurry. However, Mr. Zhao Yi Lingshan saw that Zhao Xiaoyan had to transfer it, and she was also a bit anxious. If this didn't work out, she really couldn't explain it to the bank manager. Hurry up, really. Don't worry, you won't lose out. I'll be transferring another 900 million in a little while. And don't bother manually checking my transactions in the future, or I'll have to trouble you every time. Zhao Xiaoyan hurriedly hung up, thinking that he would have to transfer money again later. Yi Lingshan on the other end of the line was completely shocked. Transferring out 300 million immediately resulted in 900 million coming in. The bank's deposit amount would only increase, not decrease. This Zhao Xiaoyan is making money too fast. Hello, Manager Yi, did you hear me? Are you there? Zhao Xiaoyan saw that the other party had stopped talking and thought that there was a problem with the phone signal. Oh, yes. Okay, Mr. Zhao, I'll arrange it for you right away. After the call ended, Yi Lingshan immediately called the bank manager. What? Another 900 million yuan will be deposited? The bank manager, Qian Jianjun, was also stunned. After a moment's thought, he said, Okay, Yi, I'll arrange for the supervision department to approve it. If what he said is true, then our bank's deposit target for this year, no, for the next few years, will be secured. Bank manager, I think what he said is true. He has no reason to lie to me. Okay, Mr. Zhao, you must keep a close eye on this line for me. 1 minute later, after seeing the words transfer successful appear, Zhao Xiaoyan finally let out a sigh of relief. After a few seconds, Zhou Jiaying's phone also received a text message. After reading the message several times and counting the zeros after the 3, and confirming that there were 8 zeros, even if Zhou Jiaying didn't believe it, she had to believe that she had really received 300 million. Zhao Xiaoyan, you're so confident that you're transferring 300 million to me? We haven't even signed a contract, and there's not even a receipt. Zhou Jiaying looked at Zhao Xiaoyan and really couldn't understand. This person trusts me too much. This is not 300 yuan, 3,000 yuan, but 300 million yuan. Zhao Xiaoyan had already received 3 times the cashback, which was 900 million yuan, and was so happy that the corners of his mouth could not be closed. He casually replied, Whatever you say, Sister Zhou, as long as the money is for you, I feel very at ease. What a level of trust. 300 million, that's enough to turn even blood brothers against each other, and he's just given it to me so easily, without any proof. Zhou Jiaying's face lit up at this. Her heart started pounding uncontrollably. Could it be that he's doing this for me? And when she saw Zhao Xiaoyan keep smiling at her, she actually felt a little moved. Ding, target Zhou Jiaying's favorability plus 10, current favorability 13. Zhao Xiaoyan, wow, if I gave her 1 billion right now, I wonder if she'd still want it. Just as her heart was starting to get all confused, Zhou Jiaying saw He Fei looking at Zhao Xiaoyan in surprise, while He Fei's hands were still tightly holding onto Zhao Xiaoyan. The small flame of excitement that had just started to burn in Zhou Jiaying's heart was instantly extinguished by reason. Doesn't he already have He Fei? And he's still acting like this towards me. It's true that men are all bad, eating from one bowl and looking at the other. Oomph, scumbag. Ding, target Zhou Jiaying's favorability 20, current favorability 7. Zhao Xiaoyan, what's wrong now? Did you give the wrong money? After receiving the money, Zhou Jiaying couldn't wait to hurry back to Bohai Construction to transfer the money into the company account to solve Bohai Construction's urgent needs. Seeing Zhou Jiaying's anxious expression, Zhao Xiaoyan didn't keep her there for long. As soon as Zhou Jiaying had walked out of the villa, He Fei immediately went upstairs to take a shower. She still had to go back to the hospital in a while. The reason she came back was that she hadn't showered in a day and it was uncomfortable. The other reason was that she wanted to be there when Zhou Jiaying came. Not long after He Fei hurriedly left the villa, Zhao Xiaoyan received an unexpected phone call. Chapter 44, Remember to reimburse yourself when you return. Dog-tailed alley. Zhao Xiaoyan glanced at a certain house number on the alley and thought that the name of this alley was very good, very down-to-earth, and similar to his own name. Looking at Su Yener, who was walking with him in high heels, but had to twist her body slightly from time to time because of the potholes in the bluestone pavement, Zhao Xianyan really felt uncomfortable just watching. I said, you must have walked down this road many times before, and you know it's uneven, but you're still wearing such high and thin heels. I'm really impressed. Su Yener glared at Zhao Xianyan, didn't say a word, and still maintained her haughty temperament. But to be fair, Su Yener is the one who knows how to dress best among the targeted women he's currently wooing. Sun Yalan has a cold temperament, and she dresses in an elegant style, especially loving to wear long dresses that show her temperament. He Fei has a temperament of purity and simplicity, and she also tends to dress in a simple way, a bit like the quiet little girl next door. Lu Xinting has a very strong charm, and her style of dressing is also towards sexiness, just like a little demon. As for the long-legged girl Zhang Yuhan, her model figure is there for all to see, just like a pure and innocent girl. Then there is Zhou Jiaying, the flower of Ling University, whose workplace style of dressing is what Zhao Xianyan finds the most attractive. Oh, I almost forgot about the mature woman Yi Lingshan, but it seems that she is going for a mature look. However, Su Yener is different from these people. Perhaps it is because of her family's financial situation. Su Yener is the shortest of them all, but she has the strongest aura of a strong woman. Her dressing style also gives off that kind of aura, giving people a feeling of arrogance and even aloofness. It is estimated that it is also to set off the aura. This woman's high heels are all 7 or 8 centimeters, and the heels are thin. Zhao Xianyan watched her walk, afraid that she would accidentally break the heel. However, this time Su Yener drove herself here and got off at the end of the alley, which surprised Zhao Xianyan. He thought Su Yener would drive into the alley like she did last time at the first courtyard. The two were not familiar with each other, and this was only the second time they had met. Although they walked side by side the whole way, they basically did not exchange any words. They walked in silence all the way to an old house. Before they reached the door, Zhao Xianyan saw a middle-aged man already waiting at the door, obviously to greet the two of them. When Su Yener saw the middle-aged man, she hurriedly walked 2 steps forward. Uncle Afu, why are you out? Afu looked at Zhao Xianyan and said, this is the Mr. Zhao you mentioned, right? Yes, he is Zhao Xianyan. Afu held his arms out horizontally, making a gesture of invitation. Mr. and Miss Zhao, please come inside. Crossing the small door, the scene inside appeared before Zhao Xianyan's eyes. Don't look at the old house's small door, but the space inside is not small after you come in. First there is a large courtyard, with the natural elements of rockery and flowing water, and then there are a lot of bamboos. I don't know what species they are all thin and small, only about 3 meters tall. Planted together, they give off a sense of an old house. After walking through the corridor, Zhao Xianyan followed Afuk to a room. At this time, in the room, an old man wearing a shirt with a lot of buttons was sitting in a wheelchair, looking at them askance. Grandpa! Su Yener shouted, and took the lead in walking in, squatting down next to the old man. Grandpa Su. Zhao Xianyan also shouted this. Who would have thought that the crooked-mouthed and squint-eyed old man in front of them was actually Su Dazhang, the richest man in Lingzhou, who single-handedly built the giant Longsheng group. Zhao Xianyan was meeting the richest man in Lingzhou for the first time, but he wasn't the least bit nervous. After sitting down, he looked around, taking in the room. The room continued the retro style, with mahogany tables and chairs with exquisitely carved patterns. There were several ink paintings hanging on 3 walls, and on the other side was a carved window. Even the lamps on the ceiling were made to look like palace lanterns. At first glance, it gives the sense of time travel. Don't look, didn't you say you can cure my grandfather? Su Yener's eyes were full of sharp glares as she watched Zhao Xianyan take a stack of cloth bags out of his arms. The cloth bags were unfolded, and inside were neatly arranged acupuncture needles of various models. Zhao Xianyan glanced back at Su Yener and pointed at the cloth bags, saying, "You'll have to reimburse me for this later." 499 yuan. In fact, Zhao Xianyan didn't care about the money, but he wanted to discuss this arrogant woman who had spoken to him in that manner just now. Zhao Xianyan was very surprised that Su Yener would come to see him so soon. He had thought that he would have to wait at least 3 or 5 days before Su Yener came to see him. No, Su Yener didn't come to his door, but a phone call was made to Zhao Xianyan's mobile phone. As for why Su Yener had his phone number, Su Yener's answer was, "Do you even know the name of the place where you live?" It was only then that Zhao Xianyan, who was slow to react, reacted. Longsheng Group Longsheng Housing. No wonder she had his phone number. The villa where he lived was built by her company, and even the property management company in the Longsheng Housing villas was Longsheng Property. Getting his contact information was a matter of a phone call, wasn't it? Although he had already taken Su Dajiang's pulse at the hospital last time, Zhao Xianyan, to be on the safe side, once again placed his hand on Su Dajiang's pulse. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Su Yener was impatient waiting by the side. Can you do it or not? It's been such a long time since you took his pulse. Zhao Xianyan withdrew his hand, glared at the woman in exasperation, and said to Fu beside him, let's lift the old man to the bed together. I think it should be face down, head facing outwards. After saying that, Zhao Xianyan walked over to the wheelchair and prepared to lift it with Fu. You don't need to do it, I'll do it. Before Zhao Xianyan could understand what Fu meant, he saw him extend both hands and effortlessly pick up Su Dajiang, then very easily position him in the position Zhao Xianyan had instructed. Zhao Xianyan swallowed, and gave Fu a thumbs up. Even though Su Dajiang was over 70 years old, he was probably used to eating well, and his body was not at all thin. But Fu lifted him up with such ease, and then effortlessly arranged him, so you can see how strong his arms are. Then I prepared a basin of hot water, and then there was an empty basin. Fu nodded to indicate that he understood, and turned around and went out. It only took a minute or two, and Fu came in with 2 basins. Seeing that everything was ready, Zhao Xianyan took out a needle from the acupuncture bag, looked at Su Dajiang, and took a deep breath. Chapter 45. At critical moments, someone always interrupts. To be honest, at this moment, Zhao Xianyan was very nervous. Although he had the Chinese medical skills given by the system, and had reached the proficient level, this was after all Zhao Xianyan's first time doing it, so it was inevitable that he would be nervous and excited. After adjusting his state, calming his breathing, Zhao Xianyan was about to twist the needle and stab it into Su Dajiang's head when, accompanied by the sound of the door being pushed open from the outside, a loud angry shout also came. Stop! This shout made Zhao Xianyan almost drop the needle. Looking back, he saw a man in his 50s with a pompadour walking quickly from the outside. Immediately behind him was a man in his 60s. Yener, what are you doing? The man with the pompadour walked into the room and went straight up to Su Yener, scolding her with a cold face. Your grandfather is like this, and you still want to torment him? Facing the rebuke from the man with the big back comb, Su Yener was not in the least intimidated. Second uncle, what do you mean by torment? I don't understand. It turned out that the person who had come was Su Dajiang's second son, Su Yener's real uncle, Suida. Okay, then who is this person? Suida pointed at Zhao Xianyan and asked Su Yener. Zhao Xianyan dodged out of the way, avoiding being pointed at, and stood in the corner with Fu. She is the person I invited to come and see Grandpa. Nonsense, you dare to bring someone you met at the hospital to treat your grandfather? Is this what you call medical treatment? You are harming your grandfather. Suida looked heartbroken. So what do you suggest? We have been to all the hospitals and had all kinds of tests done, but the results are all the same, there is no hope of recovery. Su Yener's cold eyes shot out a fierce look. Even if there is the slightest hope, I will do everything I can to make my grandfather better. Suida sighed, his tone softening. Yener, you've always been stubborn since you were little, but this is no time to be stubborn and throw a temper. This is Professor Hao Deming from Sparrow University Hospital in the land of No Ugly, and he is also a world-renowned neurologist. I had a hard time getting him to come this time, and I just want him to take a look at your grandfather. Speaking of which, Suida paused for a moment. If Professor Hao says there is still a chance, we will let Professor Hao treat your grandfather. But Yener, if Professor Hao also says it's impossible, I hope you can accept the truth. The man who followed Suida in came forward at the right time. Mr. Su, please show me your grandfather's various test reports and CT scans. Hearing the person's imposing manner, Su Yener's eyes lit up with hope again, and she hurriedly took out an item the size of an archive bag from the drawer of the bookcase in the bedroom. It's all here, Professor Hao, please take a look and tell me what's going on with my grandfather. Hao Deming took the bag, opened it, and took out the contents. There was a lot of stuff in the bag, but it was all neatly organized and even sorted by date, which saved the person looking through it a lot of trouble. After about 10 minutes, Hao Deming had read all the examination reports. He sighed and shook his head, saying, this is a stroke that has caused sequelae such as hemiplegia and aphasia. It has damaged the brain nerve tissue, and there is no chance of recovery. I'm sorry, there is nothing I can do. Hearing Hao Deming's words, Su Yener obviously couldn't stand steadily. Fortunately, there was a desk next to her, and she supported herself against it for a while, so as to avoid embarrassing her. Is there really no hope at all? Su Yener asked, not giving up. Hao Deming shook his head twice. Even Professor Hao has said this, so you should give up and stop troubling your grandfather. Suida saw Su Yener in a state of grief, and said, Yener, I know you have a good relationship with your grandfather, and you have been taking care of him during this time of his stroke. You are very tired. In this way, I have discussed it with the other shareholders. You, on the other hand, should take care of your grandfather at home and not be distracted by the affairs of the group. With your uncle there, the group will not fall apart. Su Yener glared at Suida. Suida, what do you mean? Yener, you are too impatient and don't like to listen to the words of the elderly like us. So we feel that position is not suitable for you. Grandpa is like this, and you are busy with the affairs of the group and taking care of Grandpa at the same time. We also understand that you are unable to do both. We, as your uncles, don't want you to work so hard. Besides, you're already 28 this year, and in 2 years you'll be an old maid. You should find a suitable husband and get married. After all, it's a woman's duty to take care of her husband and children. Don't worry, the group will be able to hold on with the old guys like us. When Su Feng grows up, the group will also have someone to carry on the work. Zhao Xianyan, who was listening on the side, wanted to applaud this big bald man. Every sentence is loaded with barbs, but the words are spoken as if you were doing it for your own good. I've learned my lesson. Su Yener is now angry and annoyed. Her second uncle is really calculating. He removed himself from power and then pushed his incompetent cousin up. Although Longsheng Group hasn't changed its surname, it will become Suida's group. My dear uncle, Grandpa has only just passed away less than half a year ago, and you are already so impatient? Don't forget, my shares, combined with Grandpa's, amount to 45%. Do you think you have the ability to remove me as president? Don't think I don't know what you are scheming. I tell you, as long as I, Su Yener, am here, you Suida, or Su Feng, had better not cause me trouble. Dare to reach out and grab what is not yours, and I will surely cut off your hand. Having said all this, it is equivalent to laying it out in the open, and Suida simply tore his face off. Su Yener, that position was never meant to be yours, nor was it meant to be your father's. It should have belonged to me. It was your father, my good brother, who ingratiated himself with the old man and won his favor, before snatching it away from me. Today, I am merely taking back what should have been mine. Suida took out a piece of paper, spread it out, and said, take a good look. This is a draft jointly signed by all shareholders to remove you as president. Tomorrow, in my capacity as the third largest shareholder, I will initiate a resolution to remove the president. And tomorrow, you will no longer be the president of Longsheng Group. Su Yener looked at the content on the piece of paper, and her expression changed from cold to anger. Suida, you dare? I was appointed president by Grandpa at the board meeting. The old man is already like this, so don't threaten me with him. Chapter 46, 4 Needles. Zhao Xianyan, who was watching this drama of the wealthy family up close, was really enjoying his melon when he felt someone watching him in the corner of his eye. He looked over and saw Su Dajiang, who was lying prone on the bed. At this time, although Su Dajiang's eyes were crooked and his mouth was askew, his mind was very clear. Unfortunately, he could not speak or move his hands. Looking at Zhao Xianyan, his eyes were full of pleading. Zhao Xianyan didn't know why, but he felt like he understood Su Dajiang's meaning. He raised the needle that was still twisted in his right hand and sent a question mark with his expression. Then, he saw Su Dajiang's eyes blink twice violently, as if he was responding. Looking at the two Su family uncles who were arguing fiercely, and then at the professor from the country of Not Ugly who was still studying Su Dajiang's case, Zhao Xianyan slowly moved to the side of the bed and, in Afu's surprised eyes, quickly picked up 3 acupuncture needles. Hey, kid, what are you doing? Unexpectedly, Suida actually saw Zhao Xianyan at this time. Seeing Zhao Xianyan holding needles in his hand, he shouted at him. This time, everyone's attention turned to him. Even Su Yener looked at Zhao Xianyan with a face of vigilance when she saw him again. Zhao Xianyan gave a smile and then casually raised the needle. I'm just casually looking at my newly bought needle, you guys go ahead and continue without worrying about me. Then, he really pretended to carefully examine the needle, even flicking his finger on the belly of the needle and nodding with satisfaction. Suida gave him a contemptuous glare and said to Su Yener, look at what you found. What the hell are you doing? It turned out that just when the few people thought that Zhao Xianyan was really just studying the needles and their guard was slightly relaxed, they saw Zhao Xianyan quickly stick the needles into Su Dajiang's head. There were 4 needles in total, and in less than a second, they were all stuck in. By the time everyone reacted, Zhao Xianyan had already finished. That was so exciting. Zhao Xianyan's hand behind his back was trembling slightly. This was his first time administering acupuncture, and he had done it so quickly. Even though he felt confident, he couldn't help but feel a little scared afterwards. Getting needles stuck in your head can be a big deal if you're not careful. Fortunately, it was a close call. Bastard, what are you doing? Suida pushed Zhao Xianyan away, then looked at Su Dajiang, who had 4 needles stuck in his head, and was about to pull them out. You'd better not pull it out, or the old man might really be done for. Zhao Xianyan's voice came over, his tone serious. Suida's hand paused in the air, then retracted. Zhao Xianyan, what on earth are you doing? Su Yener also arrived at Zhao Xianyan's side, her eyes cold but full of tears. Didn't you invite me here? Then of course I'm treating your grandfather. Zhao Xianyan, if anything happens to my grandfather, I, Su Yener, will definitely not let you go. Su Yener now deeply regretted why she had been so desperate and had actually gone to such a person to treat her grandfather. Professor Hao had already said that there was no way to recover her grandfather's condition, but he had still dared to insert needles. Su Yener now wanted to kill Zhao Xianyan. But she hated herself even more, feeling that she had brought the wolf into the house. Suida said to Ah Fu, hurry up and call 120. Ah Fu nodded and was about to go out. But then he saw Zhao Xianyan pick up the tray of hot water again. What are you doing now? Suida asked, glaring at him with his eyes wide. Pouring water, can't you see? Zhao Xianyan gave an expression of knowing what he was doing but pretending not to. This time everyone learned their lesson. Su Yener stared at him. Suida stared at him. Zhao Xianyan looked at Suida and said, you're glaring at me like this, do you believe I'll splash water on you? Suida still stared at him. I'm so angry, you still dare to glare, look at the water. After saying that, Zhao Xianyan made a full gesture and was about to splash the water on Suida. Suida was startled and subconsciously ducked to the side, just revealing Su Dajiang behind him. Zhao Xianyan kept moving, building up momentum, and a basin of hot water was splashed over the top of Su Dajiang's head. Su Yan. Suida. How Deming. Ah fuck. You're fucking looking for death. Suida was furious and swung his fist at Zhao Xianyan. Even if he hated his grandfather's unfair arrangement, he was still his father. In his opinion, Zhao Xianyan didn't look like he was treating his own father, he was clearly just playing around. Pop. Just then, Su Dajiang, who was lying prone on the bed, let out a loud cry, and a mouthful of old blood spurted out of his mouth and nose. The blood fell squarely into the empty basin that had been placed on the ground first. The blood in the basin was not the usual red color, but blackish and very viscous. Dad. Grandpa. The two of them were about to go over, but one of them had already taken the lead and quickly removed the 4 needles from Su Dajiang's head. As the needles were pulled out, Su Dajiang suddenly surfaced like a drowning person, gasping for breath. Suida once again pushed Zhao Xianyan away, squatted on the ground, and looked at his father. Dad, are you okay? Zhao Xianyan was once again pushed to the side of Ah Fu, pointed at Suida and looked at Ah Fu. You saw it, he pushed me twice. Ah Fu glanced at Zhao Xianyan and then focused on Su Dajiang on the bed. Su Yener also arrived and, looking at her grandfather, whose breathing had gradually slowed, anxiously said, Grandpa, are you okay? Unexpectedly, this outburst of words really got a response from Su Dajiang. Grandpa, you're fine. Looking at Su Dajiang again, his mouth was no longer crooked and his eyes were no longer slanted. Su Yener. Suida. How Deming. Ah fuck. Grandpa, you're okay? The happiest person was definitely Su Yener. Now she no longer looked like the domineering female CEO, her face was a mixture of tears and laughter, and she really had snot and tears coming out of her nose. Suida was also very excited, but Su Dajiang was even more so than him. You son of a bitch, your old man is still alive. What? You're already thinking about bullying Yener? Although he was still lying prone on the bed, Su Dajiang's head could already move at this point. Although his speech was still slurred, it was only a little, and it didn't affect his ability to scold his son. I'm telling you, I'm still alive. No, there was another person whose excitement was not at all inferior to Su Dajiang's. How did you do it? This is nothing short of a medical miracle. Hao Deming, who had witnessed the entire process, was so excited that his face turned red. If someone had told him that someone who had suffered from the after effects of a stroke for half a year would actually recover most of their abilities and be able to speak again after just a few needles and a basin of hot water, he would not have believed it. But this time, he had seen it with his own eyes. Chapter 47, A Toast to Grandpa. This is Chinese medicine. Zhao Xianyan felt that he should have said this with a masterly air. Unfortunately, if only he was wearing a doctor's coat. At that moment. Ding, target Su Yener's favorability towards the host plus 50, current favorability 30. An hour later. Su family manor. Zhao Xianyan looked at the table full of dishes and was dumbfounded. It was really sumptuous, almost extravagant. Zhao Xianyan couldn't name most of the dishes, but just by looking at their appearance, he knew they were rare and good things. It really is the rich who know how to eat. After Ah Fu placed a bottle of Flying Tiger Mao Tai on the table, he bowed to Zhao Xianyan and said, "Mr. Zhao, the dishes are ready. These were carefully prepared by the chef. I don't know if they will suit your appetite. I'm not a picky eater, I'm just not sure if there's too much of it, it's too much of a waste." Looking at the table of dishes, Zhao Xianyan didn't know how to pick up the chopsticks. It really is the case that a wild boar can't eat fine grain. Zhao Xianyan said to himself with a laugh. But just because you've never eaten it before doesn't mean you can't. As long as you have a mouth, you can eat. Zhao Xianyan was not going to be polite, so he picked up his chopsticks and started to pick up a plate of food in front of him. No matter what it was, he just shoved it into his mouth and chewed. Seeing Zhao Xianyan's eating habits, Su Yener, who was sitting on the side, slightly tilted her mouth, her eyes full of contempt, but mostly a smile. Eating habits are a good way to see a person's upbringing and character. But Zhao Xianyan is a loser himself, and whether it's his style of dressing or the way he eats, he just wants to be comfortable and enjoy himself. Especially when he's drinking soup, he can't help making a slurping sound. Su Yener can't help but think, can't you eat without making a sound? I'm not smacking my lips, the soup is just hot. Zhao Xianyan continues to drink, without the slightest intention of stopping. Su Dazhang, who was in a wheelchair, could not move his hands and feet, but he could make facial expressions. He just smiled at Zhao Xianyan, not feeling the least bit uncomfortable. Xianyan is just being himself, and I think that's great. Zhao Xianyan, on the other hand, muttered to himself while eating, of course he's being himself, don't you see what time it is? It's only 3 o'clock and he's having lunch, so of course he's hungry. As the old saying goes, no banquet is complete without wine. Ah Fu, pour Xianyan a drink. Ah Fu immediately opened the Mao Tai and poured a glass in front of Zhao Xianyan, but the second glass was handed to Su Yanyan. Looking at the clear wine in the glass in front of him, Zhao Xianyan didn't want to drink it after all. After all, his drinking capacity was only average. But this was Mao Tai flying, which he had only heard of before but never drunk. Zhao Xianyan also wanted to try it to see what it was really like. Su Dazhang looked at his granddaughter, Su Yanyan, and proposed a toast to Zhao Xianyan on his behalf. Su Yener, yes, Grandpa. That's fine. Grandpa Su, I toast you and wish you a speedy recovery. Zhao Xianyan was also polite, raising his glass to Su Dazhang, who was sitting in a wheelchair. Su Dazhang nodded, very good. Su Yener obediently clinked her glass with Zhao Xianyan's and then tilted her head back and gulped. Zhao Xianyan had drunk baijiu before, and this flying sky Mao Tai was indeed different. It didn't have the feeling of cutting your throat that ordinary baijiu has, but the taste was also much stronger. Learning from the TV show, Zhao Xianyan shouted, good wine, good wine. This made Su Dazhang laugh out loud again. It seems that in the future, finally someone will see someone who can drink with an old man like me. Yener and the others only like to drink red wine and foreign wine, and they can't get along with me. When I get better, Xianyan, you have to have a good drink with me. Su Yener frowned and said, you can't drink when you get better. Remember to go for a checkup and listen to the doctor's advice. Turning to Zhao Xianyan, she said in an imperious tone, don't let my grandfather drink. If you want to drink, drink by yourself. Zhao Xianyan just didn't like Su Yener's bad temper and her arrogant attitude. Don't worry, Grandpa, when you get better, I'll drink with you every day. After eating a few mouthfuls of food, Zhao Xianyan raised his wine glass again. As he spoke, he deliberately glanced at Su Yener. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 flavors of food, Su Yener saw that her grandfather had improved, so after accompanying him for a while, she was instructed by Su Dazhang to go back. Su Dazhang sat in a wheelchair and looked at Zhao Xianyan, who was eating heartily, and said with a smile, it's good to be young. When I was your age, I could eat as much as you. Being able to eat is a blessing. Zhao Xianyan slowly swallowed the food in his mouth. You're not in any trouble right now, so when you get better, you should exercise more and walk around more. If you're not doing anything, go dance in a square or something, and your appetite will naturally come back. Ha, dance in a square? I don't have that kind of luck. Su Dazhang was amused by Zhao Xianyan's words, and then sighed, saying, although I'm not involved in the group's affairs anymore, I'm still worried about that girl Yenner. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. You are already at this age, just take care of yourself, why bother with so many things? Su Dazhang sighed, but I can't just ignore it. Yenner grew up by my side since she was little. She has a cold and arrogant disposition and a stubborn temper. I'm really afraid that one day when I'm really gone, no one will help her. Then he changed the subject and asked, Xianyan, what did your parents do? Zhao Xianyan did not hide it. My parents died long ago. They were teachers in the countryside. Zhao Xianyan's parents died in a car accident when he was a freshman in college. Su Dazhang did not expect Zhao Xianyan's parents to have passed away so early. He sighed with emotion and said, life is unpredictable. I'm sorry. Zhao Xianyan naturally knew what Su Dazhang was thinking at this time. It is said that there is no filial son at the bedside of a long-term patient, but in fact, family property disputes at the bedside of the long-term patient are not uncommon in wealthy families. This time, because Su Dazhang is improving, Suida's previous efforts will be in vain. But this also serves as a wake-up call for Su Dazhang. As long as he is around, his granddaughter's position is secure. If he is gone, let alone gone, as long as he is bedridden, his granddaughter's position is in jeopardy. Although Su Dazhang had driven Suida out of the old house, he had only treated the symptoms and not the root cause. On the one hand, he had his granddaughter, whom he had raised himself, and on the other, he had his son. They were both like the palm of his hand and the back of his hand. He couldn't really disown his son just for Su Yanyan's sake. After eating and drinking their fill, Zhao Xianyan pushed Su Dazhang out into the courtyard to sit down. Ah Fuk had set the tea table early, and as soon as the two arrived, he poured the tea in the teacup into the small cup, and the fresh tea aroma already drifted into Zhao Xianyan's nose. This is the finest tea, Guanyin, try it. Zhao Xianyan had never drunk this kind of gongfu tea before, so he lifted the teacup and gulped it down. Apart from the fact that it was hot, he couldn't taste anything, it was just the flavor of the tea leaves. Chapter 48, I'll give you my granddaughter in marriage. After all, I founded Longsheng single-handedly. I'm really scared of what's going to happen today. Su Dazhang fixed his gaze on Zhao Xianyan, his smile full of gratitude. This time, it's good to have you. Plus, last time at the hospital, you saved me twice. Hey, you're too kind. It just so happened that I was able to solve it. If I encountered something I couldn't handle, I would have run away long ago. Cherish your life. After all, he is already a billionaire, and Zhao Xianyan now cherishes his life. Su Dazhang laughed heartily, and the more he looked at Zhao Xianyan, the more he liked him. Xianyan, how old are you? 22. Are you married? Zhao Xianyan was speechless and said, I won't graduate from university until next year, so how can I get married so soon? As they say, there is no need to thank someone for a great favor. So, why don't you let me give you my granddaughter in marriage? Poof. Zhao Xianyan spat out a mouthful of tea directly onto Su Dazhang's clothes. What did you say? How did it come to this? He was really confused by Su Dazhang. This topic changed so quickly, it was like 1 foot in the sky and 1 foot on the ground. They were having a nice meal, drinking authentic tea, and how did it come to talking about marrying her granddaughter? Ah Fu busily pulled a paper towel to wipe the tea from Su Dazhang's clothes, and glared at Zhao Xianyan reproachfully. Su Dazhang didn't care and continued, you're 22, right, which is the legal age. Yenner is a bit older than you, but only by 6 years. An older woman is like a gold brick, and you'll get 2 gold bricks. Besides, my granddaughter is so pretty, she's more than good enough for you. Su Dazhang said, acting mysteriously, I'll tell you a secret. My granddaughter has never been in love. If you can get her to marry you after just 1 date, it would be great. Zhao Xianyan couldn't help but think of Su Yenner's arrogant appearance, and rejected her outright. Why? She's too self-righteous. If I marry her, I'll be crushed under her feet. Zhao Xianyan admitted that Su Yenner was indeed pretty, but apart from anything else, her arrogant character, which looked down on everything and everyone, annoyed Zhao Xianyan just by looking at it. Besides, he was a man with a system, and he would definitely not lack women in the future. According to Su Yenner's character, would she be willing to share with others? What, isn't Su Yenner the target of the system's bound counterattack? Come on, she's the target of the lock, but the system didn't say that the counterattack had to be successful. so it depends on your own abilities. If you can subdue her, she will be obedient. Su Dazhang continued to seduce her step by step. Zhao Xiaonian shrugged his shoulders and said no. Even if I match up with your granddaughter, is that okay? With her spoiled brat temper and overall scowl, she just looks uncomfortable. Su Dazhang laughed. You see, she's cold and you're warm, so it's a good match. You can go ahead and give it a try. But my granddaughter is a girl after all, so you, as a man, have to take the initiative and invite her out for a meal or a movie or something. You old man, this is getting nowhere, it's getting further and further away. I'm not going to argue with you anymore, I'm leaving. I'll come back in 3 days. With that, Zhao Xiaonian literally slipped out of the Su family mansion like he was escaping from a fire. Did the master really like him? Ah Fu asked as he watched Su Dazhang as he watched Zhao Xiaonian leave, tidying up the tea set. This kid is kind-hearted, although sometimes he's not very well adjusted, he has a strong sense of his own opinions. If I had to choose someone for Yenner, I would choose him. Su Dazhang looked at Ah Fu and asked, what do you think of this kid? Ah Fu thought for a moment and gave his own assessment, he's got a lot of nerve. Su Dazhang knew he was talking about the acupuncture he had just given him, and laughed, this may be the case when one's skill is high. Master, Xiaonian also said that you need to rest well, let me help you back to your room. After all, Su Dazhang had just recovered from a serious illness. Although he could now speak more fluently, he was actually only a little better, and he still needed to slowly recuperate. Ah Fu carried Su Dazhang to bed and carefully covered him up. Oh, by the way, when Xiaonian gives me acupuncture in 3 days, remember to ask Yenner to come too. The two of them need to spend more time together. Since they had arrived at the Su family mansion by Yenner's car, and Yenner had already left, Xiaonian had to take a taxi back. In the taxi, Xiaonian received a call from Zhang Haolong. Zhang Haolong had already arranged a dinner with Guo Liang for tomorrow night at the Regal Hotel. He would act as a mediator and help the two of us reconcile. Over the phone, Zhang Haolong kept asking which woman it was. Because he had also asked Guo Liang also refused to say. As for Guo Liang, it would naturally be best if the matter could be resolved amicably. After all, these days, it is best not to make enemies. But if Guo Liang still won't let it go, then Zhao Xiaonian is not afraid of him. After all, he is a man with a 10-digit asset, and Zhao Xiaonian's self-confidence has risen along with the bulging wallet. After all, the saying that money can shape courage is not just nonsense. That night, He Fei sent a message saying that she had to continue to take care of her brother in the hospital. Zhao Xiaonian had to stay alone in the empty house again. The Regal Hotel is well known in Lingzhou and is the first choice for many wealthy people for socializing. Zhao Xiaonian was about to drive into the hotel's underground parking lot when a man in a black suit came up to him and motioned for Zhao to wait a moment. Then he saw him clear a parking space in front of the hotel entrance that was blocked by a traffic cone and motioned for Zhao to park here. Zhao Xiaonian didn't think much of it. He didn't bother to drive to the parking lot as there was a parking space close by, so he just reversed the car into the space. When getting out of the car, the boy in the black suit deliberately helped Zhao Xiaonian protect the top of the door frame to prevent him from bumping it. Xiaonian. As soon as he walked into the hotel lobby, Zhao Xiaonian heard someone calling his name from behind. When he turned around, he saw Zhang Haolong just getting out of the elevator. Lao Zheng. Zhao Xiaonian was also very happy to see his roommate, whom he had not seen for several months, and quickly walked up to him. Damn, I almost didn't recognize you in this outfit. Zhao Xiaonian looked at Zhang Haolong, who was dressed like a rich young man in a shirt and trousers, with hair gel, and couldn't recognize him. Back when they were in the same dormitory, although Zhang Haolong was a rich second generation, he never cared about food or clothing. He ate in the cafeteria like everyone else and shopped for clothes on Taobao, and he managed to live like a second-generation rich kid, no different from Zhao Xiaonian and the others. To be honest, there was nothing I could do about it. My old man insisted that I dress like this. These days, if you don't wear big brands and drive a luxury car, no one will do business with you. Chapter 49, You're not qualified to talk to me. Zhang Haolong never had an air of superiority with his roommates, which was the main reason why he, a rich second generation, could get along with them. At this time, a man dressed in black silk, who looked like a front desk supervisor, walked over with a smile. Mr. Zhang, you're here? I'll take you to the private room? From the way he was speaking, Zhang Haolong was a regular here. Zhang Haolong's demeanor immediately changed, and he felt a bit like a superior. Yes, thank you, Manager Chow. Manager Chow led the two into box 3 and, after chatting with Zhang Haolong for a while, smiled and withdrew. Zhao Xiaoyan teased, I can't tell, from the way he carried himself just now, he's a successful person. Since there's no one else here, Zhang Haolong's arrogance is back. Anyway, it's all an act. My old man has drilled this into me. Your father is really preparing you to take over. There's no way around it. After all, I'm the only child in the Zhang family, so I'm completely duty-bound. You have no idea how I've spent the past few months since summer vacation. I've been busier than a dog. The two of them discussed some recent developments, and after hearing that Chen Yijuan had dumped Zhao Xiaoyan for a middle-aged man, they were also indignant. The people in their dormitory knew best what Zhao Xiaoyan had done to Chen Yijuan. But as they talked, the conversation drifted back to the matter with Guo Liang. Tell me the truth now, who are you doing this for? Zhang Haolong came to help himself, and Zhao Xiaoyan had no intention of hiding it. Do you know He Fei from the dance department? Holy shit, He Fei. Tell me more. So Zhao Xiaoyan told Zhang Haolong about He Fei, but only that he had borrowed 100,000 yuan to repay Guo Liang, and later gave He Fei a few million. He just said the same thing as He Fei, that a distant relative of her family had lent a helping hand. Then you didn't have much to do with it, so why take the credit? Because I promised He Fei to help her get rid of Guo Liang. These days, He Fei dares not go back to school for fear of running into Guo Liang and Ma Qing. Zhang Haolong looked at Zhao Xiaoyan with raised eyebrows and said slyly, You helped so much, do you like He Fei? Zhao Xiaoyan blushed. Of course he had to help. After all the effort he had put in bed, he had to help with this too. Seeing Zhao Xiaoyan like this, Zhang Haolong understood in an instant and exclaimed in surprise, Xiaoyan, you're great, saving the beauty. He Fei is fine, there's nothing to say about her looks or figure. Tell me, do you and He Fei have a future together? How far has it developed? Zhao Xiaoyan immediately drank water tactically, but in his heart he was smugly thinking, which step? The step of being honest with each other. It was precisely because of this that Zhao Xiaoyan had to settle the matter of Guo Liang. He Fei really hadn't gone to school for several days, and it wasn't really a problem to keep avoiding it. The two were talking when the door to the private room was pushed open. Under the guidance of the waiter, Guo Liang walked in with a gloomy face. Liangzi, here? Sit. Today's game is Zhang Haolong's group, and he is here to reconcile both sides. As the host, he spoke the truth. And he and Guo Liang can be considered to have a little friendship. Guo Liang was also very polite, sitting opposite Zhao Xiaoyan and staring at him with his eyes from the moment he entered the door. Liangzi, let me introduce you, this is a buddy from my dormitory, Zhao Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan, this is our student union president, Guo Liang. Zhang Haolong continued, I've heard what Xiaoyan said, and it's actually not a big deal. Xiaoyan is just. I want to know right now, this is between He Fei and me, why are you the one talking to me about it? Where is He Fei? Why didn't she come herself? Guo Liang interrupted Zhang Haolong directly and asked, looking at Zhao Xiaoyan. Actually, there's nothing wrong with this question. Although Zhao Xiaoyan intercepted the deal, he did it behind the scenes, under the guise of being a distant relative. And the 100,000 yuan that He Fei returned was naturally also funded by this distant relative. Guo Liang never saw the shadow of Zhao Xiaoyan from beginning to end. Even when Zhang Haolong suddenly called him to talk about this matter, Guo Liang first thought that it was Zhang Haolong who intercepted him, and only later did he understand that Zhang Haolong was also entrusted by someone. In the past few days, Guo Liang has not been idle, asking around about this person named Zhao Xiaoyan. From the information obtained, Zhao Xiaoyan is just an ordinary student who has no intersection with He Fei at all, and the two of them probably don't even know each other. This makes Guo Liang even more puzzled. Why would such a person suddenly intervene in this matter, and even get in the way of He Fei and stand up for her? He had also thought about asking He Fei to clarify, but since that day, He Fei had directly asked for leave from the department and had not even returned to the dormitory. Therefore, when Zhang Haolong came out of the interview, he gladly accepted it. He just wanted to find out who had ruined his good things. And who was standing behind this loser Zhao Xiaoyan. If Zhao Xiaoyan knew what Guo Liang was thinking at this time, he could only sigh with emotion. Rich second generation, it turns out that none of them are easygoing. Since the ball has been rolling, Zhao Xiaoyan naturally has to come forward. He Fei won't come, and this matter has nothing to do with her after she returned your money. I asked Haolong to ask you to come out this time, and I also want to settle this matter once and for all. In the future, you and He Fei will go your separate ways. You guys never had anything to do with each other, and you won't have anything to do with each other in the future. No way. This is between her and me. If we want to talk, she has to come and talk to me herself. Who the hell are you? You're just a loser, and you think you can talk to me? Go on, who told you to talk to me? Tell him to come himself, don't fucking hide behind him like a coward. Guo Liang, as the student union president of Lingda University, always looks kind and gentle at school. But Zhao Xianyan feels that all of his actions are just a mask, and that this is probably the real him. But the more peaceful way to resolve this matter is better for He Fei. So Zhao Xianyan still tried to reason with Guo Liang as calmly as possible. He Fei had no other choice but to say she would sell herself to pay back the money. No one forced her to do it, and no one could say anything. But now that she has the support of her distant relatives, she naturally can't go down that road again. You gave her 100,000 yuan, and she has repaid you. You have suffered no loss, so why not let it go? Bang! Guo Liang slapped the table, and the teacup shook. The money is returned, and this matter is over? Let me tell you, and you tell her, this matter cannot be so easily swept under the rug with a casual remark. Do I, Guo Liang, have no face? Oh, when you need money, you come to me of your own accord, but when you don't need it anymore, you just return the 100,000 yuan and pretend that it never happened? Never. Are you not treating me, Guo Liang, like a fool? Let me tell you, I, Guo Liang, am not a pushover. Chapter 50, this condition is impossible. Guo Liang slammed the table, which was actually equivalent to slapping the host in the face. Zhang Haolong's smiling face also immediately subsided, and the temperament that had been cultivated by his father over time immediately switched on. Guo Liang, let's talk about this. What do you mean by slapping the table? Seeing that Zhang Haolong's face was not looking good, Guo Liang also knew that what he had just done was a bit too much, so he said apologetically, I'm sorry. But I'm not talking about you. After saying that, he deliberately glared at Zhao Xianyan. After all, Zhang Haolong was invited by Zhao Xianyan to help, and it was also time for him to say something, so he continued, I've heard about this matter. In fact, in the end, in terms of money, you, Guo Liang, really have nothing to lose. Seeing that Guo Liang was about to speak, Zhang Haolong raised his hand to stop him and continued, I understand that what you, Guo Liang, are fighting for is not money, but face. Now that we've come this far, just tell me what you want to do so that this matter can be forgotten. Zhao Xianyan also looked at Guo Liang, waiting for him to make a condition. My condition is very simple. Guo Liang looked at Zhao Xianyan and said, word for word, let He Fei stay with me for one night, and I will pretend that this never happened. As soon as these words came out, Zhao Xianyan's face finally sank, and it sank very deeply. The anger kept rising, and it even made him feel like punching Guo Liang. Zhang Haolong said sternly, Guo Liang, your condition is absolutely impossible. In his opinion, He Fei and Zhao Xianyan must have had an ambiguous relationship, or at least an ambiguous relationship. It is absolutely impossible to let He Fei accompany Guo Liang. At the very least, he had heard about He Fei when he was at school, a woman who kept herself pure. Although he, Zhang Haolong, was a rich second generation, he occasionally needed to play the field, but sending a woman to a man's bed was not something he, Zhang Haolong, would do. This is how this matter started. Isn't He Fei a prostitute? She found me, and I was willing to pay. She also set the price herself, so I didn't force her, did I? I even dumped Ma Qing for her sake. Now that I've got everything ready, she's changed her mind and doesn't want to do it anymore. I'm not some pushover, Guo Liang. She can either spend the night with me, or she can wait. I can make her reputation at Lingda University so bad that she won't be able to survive there. Zhao Xianyan, I'll tell you something else. I haven't gone to see her yet, but when I find the time, and when I find her, just wait and see. Guo Liang's words carried a very serious threat. Zhao Xianyan believed that with Guo Liang's reputation at school and his title as student union president, if he really wanted to, he could definitely make He Fei's reputation go down. This was the last thing Zhao Xianyan wanted to see. Zhang Haolong naturally also heard the meaning of these words. Leaning back in his chair, he crossed his arms and looked at Guo Liang and said, Guo Liang, do you really want to go this far? If you do, it won't look good for anyone. If it's not good, it's not good. Anyway, I've already lost face, so I don't care anymore. Guo Liang was probably referring to the incident at the Hunan restaurant the other day, when he had a public argument with Ma Qing and was splashed with soup. After all, quite a few people had seen it, and the story would definitely spread. Since Zhao Xianyan had basically not been at school for the past few days, he had no idea what kind of story it had become. The room fell silent. The waiter, who had been watching from the private dining room, saw that the room had fallen silent and quickly brought the dishes that had been delivered earlier. He was very quick. Manager Chow, whom they had seen downstairs earlier, had already received the news and was also watching the situation in the private dining room from the private dining room. Those in the catering industry are afraid of customers causing trouble. It's fine to argue a little, but as the situation became more and more heated, she was ready to step in at any time. As for Guo Liang, of course she had seen him before. It was Zhao Xianyan, who was dressed in ordinary clothes, that she saw for the first time. But in her opinion, the two young masters of the Zhang and Zhou families, who were able to sit together, were probably also some old men. After all, at their level, they make friends with people from the same circle. Therefore, the name Zhao Xianyan stuck in her mind. Manager Chow, I've been looking for you for a long time. So you're hiding here, avoiding me, are you? At this time, a loud voice came from the aisle. Manager Chow looked back and saw another regular customer, so she hurriedly walked out of the anteroom. Although there was still a door between the anteroom and the private room, Manager Chow was still afraid that they would hear her. President Qian, what brings you here today? Manager Chow wore a friendly smile on her face. It's because President Zhou invited me to dinner. We're old friends, so I really couldn't refuse. Manager Chow's eyes lit up. Is that President Zhou from Bohai Construction? Yes. Oh, we're old friends. I'll have to toast you both later. Manager Chow is also a woman who is good at maintaining relationships with clients. She is good at maintaining relationships with clients. Otherwise, she would not have been able to get to this position. When a client books a table with her, she may also have KPL performance assessments. Who is in here? You, Manager Chow, have to personally serve them? Manager Qian casually asked. Manager Chow didn't want to give President Qian the impression that he was partial, so he hurriedly explained, I just happened to wander in here, came in to take a look, and check on the work of the people below. Inside are the son of Hongda's general manager Jing and the younger son of Boyua's general manager Zhou, and there's also a new face, Zhao Xianyan, whose family I don't know. Come, President Qian, which box are you in? I have to give you and General Manager Zhou a toast. Manager Chow said as he was about to walk forward, but he noticed that President Qian was frozen in place with a strange expression on his face. President Qian, what's wrong with you? Inside box 3. The dishes were all served, but no one at the table moved their chopsticks. The already decanted red wine also stood quietly on the table. Zhang Haolong stood up, picked up the red wine in the decanter, poured it into a wineglass, and poured into the wineglasses in front of Guo Liang and Zhao Xianyan respectively. Finally, he poured himself a half glass as well. One should not say everything and do everything. Society is a place of fame and fortune, so it is best to keep a little bit of everything to yourself, so that you can get along in the future. This is what my father taught me, and I think he is right. Guo Liang, I also want to give you this advice for mutual encouragement. Zhang Haolong is trying to put Guo Liang in his place. The Hongda Group is superior to Boyua Company in terms of both size and strength. Although the two companies are not in the same league, that's just how the business world is. You never know when they might become partners or enemies. Along, do you really have to get involved in this matter? Guo Liang looked at Zhang Haolong and asked. Zhang Haolong pointed at Zhao Xianyan and laughed, there's no choice. My brothers have come to me, so no matter what I say, I have to do something. Chapter 51, one after the other, people came and drained the glass of red wine in one gulp. Zhang Haolong walked over to Guo Liang and patted him on the shoulder. After all is said and done, it's just a matter of the size of your crotch. I don't believe that with your abilities and financial resources, you won't be able to find a woman who is prettier and has a better figure than He Fei. I'll take what you just said as you being angry. After you drink this glass of wine, just do me a favor and let's just let this matter rest. Zhao Xianyan did not expect Zhang Haolong to help and actually say such things. Just from Zhang Haolong's performance tonight, Zhao Xianyan felt that the university dormitory had not been in vain in the past few years. Guo Liang, however, slapped Zhang Haolong's hand away. What if I don't give you face today? Guo Liang's words were also equivalent to declaring the collapse of today's negotiations. In fact, if this really caused Zhang Haolong to take the Hongda Group and confront Boyua Company, not to mention whether Zhang Haolong would really do it, just Zhang Haolong's father, it is estimated that it is impossible to start a big fight just because of the two children fighting over a woman. Not to mention that the person fighting over a woman is not even his own son. Zhang Haolong gave Zhao Xianyan a look, the meaning of which was also very clear. There was no way to have a good conversation. Zhao Xiaoyan naturally knew that nothing could be achieved today. After giving Zhang Haolong a grateful look, Zhao Xiaoyan didn't care anymore. He had originally thought that it would be best to reach an agreement, but if that was not possible, the worst that could happen was to deal with the situation as it arose. To borrow Guo Liang's words, Zhao Xiaoyan was now a vegetarian, and not someone who could be pushed around. Well, since we can't agree, that's enough for today. Zhang Haolong, don't step in any muddy water. Guo Liang stood up and said to Zhao Xiaoyan, I'll give you some advice too, soldier boy, don't just give people a free ride, you're not worthy. After saying that, Guo Liang took a step to leave. At this time, the closed compartment door was pushed open a crack, and a sexy young woman in a uniform skirt and gold-rimmed glasses timidly walked in through the crack. Zhang Haolong was about to ask who the other person was looking for when the young woman, with a surprised expression, spoke first. Mr. Zhao, it really is you. The person who had come was Zhao Xiaoyan's acquaintance, Yi Lingshan, the exclusive VLP customer service manager assigned to him by Lingzhou Bank. Before Zhao Xiaoyan could reply, Yi Lingshan had already nodded outside the box, President, it's Mr. Zhao, and after saying that, she opened the door to the box. Then, a middle-aged man with a receding hairline and a big belly walked in, holding a glass of wine in his hand. A smile was already on his oily face. Zhang Haolong was a little surprised to see the man. President Qian? These days, when business reaches a certain level, it is inevitable to deal with the bank. Zhang Haolong's father had taken him to drink with this man a few times, so he recognized him. Although the Zhou family also runs a business, Guo Liang has an older brother, so he has had little contact with business matters. Sorry about that, everyone. Oh, there's Xiaolong too. How's your father doing? Go back and tell him that I'll treat him to a drink sometime. President Qian smiled and greeted Zhang Haolong. Sure, I heard my father mention it the other day, that he was hoping to invite you for a drink sometime. Zhang Haolong is now used to these situations and has a set of phrases ready. President, this gentleman is Mr. Zhao Xiaoyan. Seeing that his president had greeted Zhang Haolong, he quickly walked over to Zhao Xiaoyan and introduced the two men to each other. Mr. Zhao, this is our bank's president Qian Jianjun. Ha, Mr. Zhao, I've long wanted to meet you, but I didn't expect it to be such a coincidence that we would run into each other here. Qian Jianjun laughed, walked over to Zhao Xiaoyan's seat, and held out his right hand. Zhao Xiaoyan also quickly stood up, shook hands with the other person, and laughed, President Qian, you're too kind. Ha, I just didn't expect Zhao Xiaoyan to be so young. Yesterday you were very generous. Here, I, Qian Jianjun, toast you. With that, Qian Jianjun raised the red wine glass in his hand. Zhao Xiaoyan also raised his glass, clinked it with Qian Jianjun's, and said, I'm flattered. Zhang Haolong saw this and couldn't understand why Qian Jianjun was proposing a toast, and to Zhao Xiaoyan at that. But one thing he did know was that Qian Jianjun was notorious for not doing anything without expecting a reward. The person he would deign to propose a toast to was at least as worthy as him in terms of status and wealth. So what was the story with his roommate? Although he was puzzled, Zhang Haolong knew that this was not the time to ask, and he had to suppress his curiosity. At this moment, on the other side, Guo Liang was also surprised to hear that the pot-bellied middle-aged man was actually the bank president. He followed up by looking at Zhao Xiaoyan with a little more gravity in his eyes. Although he had no contact with the family business, he also knew what kind of people the bank president was willing to initiate contact with. The two men finished their drinks. Qian Jianjun glanced at Zhang Haolong and Guo Liang and asked, Mr. Zhao, what brings you here at this hour today? Oh, Haolong is a roommate of mine. Zhao Xiaoyan only introduced Zhang Haolong but not Guo Liang, and Qian Jianjun, who was quick-witted, naturally heard the meaning. It seems that Zhao Xiaoyan doesn't like the second son of the Zhou family. But his face still had an unwavering smile, so I won't disturb your good friend gathering. Turning his head, he said to Zhao Xiaoyan again, took out his mobile phone, and said to Mr. Zhao, let's exchange phone numbers. If there is anything about Xiaoya's service that is not up to standard, you can call me directly and I will criticize her. Zhao Xiaoyan glanced at Yi Lingshan, the young woman standing next to him, and smiled, Manager Yi is quite good. That's good, that's good. After the two exchanged contact information, Qian Jianjun was about to take his leave, but just then, two more people walked in outside the private room. The people who came were also two people, a man and a woman, and both of them were holding wine glasses in their hands when they came in. The man looked about 50 years old and looked like a successful person. The woman was in her 20s, younger and prettier than Yi Lingshan. Zhao Xiaoyan recognized the two at first glance as Zhou Jiaying and his daughter. Ha, you old money, you didn't know to wait for me. Zhou Bohai smiled in a good mood as soon as he entered the door, and pointed his finger at Qian Jianjun. Seeing the two people who came in, Zhang Haolong was stunned again. He then looked at Guo Liang, who had already stood up. Sure enough, when Guo Liang saw the two people come in, he was also very surprised, but he respectfully called out, "Uncle, sister." Guo Liang's shout also brought Zhao Xianyan's attention, and he was also very surprised. Are Guo Liang and Zhou Jiaying related? Chapter 52, So the misunderstanding was born. You have to know that titles can tell you a lot. Calling someone uncle or aunt is just a social courtesy, it just seems closer than calling someone their job title. But calling someone older uncle or younger uncle is something you would only do to your own family members. Hey! Zhou Bohai just nodded. Zhou Jiaying looked over and asked, "Why are you here?" Zhou Liang was at a loss for words. I don't know how to answer that question. You see, at home, he was not afraid of anyone, but he was afraid to the bone of this cousin who was only a year older than him. Lao Zhou, why are you here too? President Qian Jianjun was also surprised by Zhou Bohai's arrival. Zhou Bohai laughed and said, I wondered why you were eating so well and then you ran out to propose a toast. If Jiaying hadn't had good ears and heard that you were also here, I would have missed it. Shen Jianjun immediately picked up on the meaning of these words, especially the fact that the other person seemed to be closer than he was in the way they addressed each other, and couldn't help but ask, "What, you know Mr. Zhao too?" Zhou Bohai felt that it was only natural that Qian Jianjun knew Zhao Xianyan. After all, Shen Jianjun worked at a bank, and the bank would probably be keeping an eye on individual customers like Zhao Xianyan, who had a large amount of liquid capital. Zhou Bohai pointed to his daughter next to him. Jiaying and Xianyan were good friends. Without mentioning alumni or friends, a good friend is enough to confirm the relationship between the two. Shen Jianjun naturally would not believe that Zhou Bohai would deliberately condescend to propose a toast just because Jiaying and Xianyan are good friends. Then he heard Zhou Bohai say, "The VIP I mentioned to you just now is also Xianyan." Qian Jianjun suddenly understood. He knew that Bohai Construction had encountered some trouble some time ago. Zhou Bohai had even approached him a few times about it. Out of friendship, he had given the other party a loan of tens of millions of yuan, but he could not give any more. After all, at that time, Bohai Construction was on the verge of collapse, and he dared not take any risks by lending the other party any more money. However, yesterday, he heard that Zhou Bohai had encountered a benefactor who had directly given Bohai Construction a 300 million yuan lifeline, temporarily solving the immediate problem. Today, Zhou Bohai specially invited Qian Jianjun to dinner and drinks to thank the other party for lending a helping hand in his time of need. Although tens of millions of yuan could not solve the urgent problem for Bohai Construction at the time, the favor was noted. Qian Jianjun slapped his thigh and laughed, "That's really a coincidence." Ha ha ha. Zhou Bohai walked over to Zhao Xianyan and said, "Xianyan, I'm shameless enough to call myself your uncle." Zhao Xianyan replied, "Uncle Zhou, you're too kind. From Zhou Jiaying's perspective, I should call you uncle." Zhao Xianyan's words made Zhou Bohai feel very good. Okay, then, Uncle Zhou won't stand on ceremony with you. I'm very grateful for your help this time. Here, Uncle Zhou would like to toast you. Zhou Jiaying, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but think of the words "you can count on me" that Zhao Xianyan had said to her at the villa. She blushed. "Uncle Zhou, you're too kind," she said, quickly filling her glass and clinking it with Zhou Bohai's glass, which was slightly lower. Seeing Zhao Xianyan's subtle movement, President Qian thought of something. After Zhou Bohai had drunk, he patted the other person's back and teased, "Old Zhou, you have a good daughter." The ambiguity in this sentence left people with a lot to think about. This, ha ha ha. Zhou Bohai knew about Zhao Xianyan's hidden treasure, and it was a hidden treasure that he had bought from him. But this was not the time to explain, so he could only laugh. And the blush that had just gone down on Zhou Jiaying rose up again. Zhang Haolong was dumbfounded. He glanced at Zhao Xianyan and then at Zhou Jiaying, who was blushing. Guo Liang was even more dumbfounded. His cousin and that loser were actually inextricably linked? A misunderstanding was born. Seeing that his father had finished his toast, Zhou Jiaying also came up with a wine glass. "Xianyan, thank you, I'd like to toast you too." Everyone had already changed from senior Zhao to senior sister Zhou, so Zhou naturally went along with the flow and changed from junior Zhao to junior year. Zhao poured some wine again, clinked glasses with Zhou, and said, "Hey, you don't need to thank me." Because there had been a misunderstanding earlier, Zhao's words only solidified the speculation of many people present. Zhou Jiaying immediately blushed shyly and gave the other person a look. However, this look fell into Zhao Xianyan's eyes, and it was full of charm. It made Zhao Xianyan feel like he was in a daze. Ding, target Zhou Jiaying's favorability plus 60, current favorability 53. Zhao Xiaonian. When Director Qian saw Zhou Jiaying proposing a toast, he hurriedly gave a wink to Yi Lingshan standing nearby. Yi Lingshan also took an empty glass from the waiter, poured some wine into it, and walked up, slightly bowing and saying, "Mr. Zhao, I would also like to propose a toast to you." It was just this bow that caused Zhao Xiaonian's eyes to follow her cleavage as she unbuttoned her shirt, revealing a red-wrapped snow-white area underneath, as well as the deep valley that was outlined. It was really big, seemingly much bigger than He Fei's 32D. Naturally, all of this was seen by Zhou Jiaying, who was standing nearby, and she suddenly felt a pang of displeasure in her heart. XSP. Ding, target Zhou Jiaying's favorability 10, current favorability 43. Zhao Xiaonian quickly averted his gaze, clinked glasses with Yi Lingshan, and took another glass of red wine. At this juncture, Zhou Bohai looked at Zhou Liang and said in a tone of voice like an older brother, "Liang, since you and Xiaonian are friends, you should get together more often. Don't always hang out with those other friends of yours, you should learn from your brother, understand?" In Zhou Bohai's opinion, since Zhou Liang was eating at the same table as Zhao Xiaonian, their relationship was obviously not bad, so he gave him a little advice. However, Zhou Liang, who was still in a daze, mechanically nodded and said yes. At this time, Zhao Xiaonian also introduced Zhou Bohai, "Uncle Zhou, this is my good friend, Zhang Haolong." Zhou Bohai smiled and said, "I have heard of the son of Hongda's CEO Zhang. Yes, you are a good-looking young man." Zhang Haolong also toasted Zhou Bohai, and they considered themselves to be acquainted. Seeing that the toasts were over, Qian Jianjun and Zhou Bohai and the others were about to leave. But a figure with a commanding presence walked past the front of the box, but the next second, the figure walked back and stood in front of the box. "Zhao Xiaonian, why are you here?" "President Su." After recognizing the person, Qian Jianjun was shocked and quickly said hello. This person was the overbearing President Su Yenner. Su Yenner just nodded at the several people as a response. Chapter 53, How did he know about this? With a business as large as Longsheng Group, it is only natural to have dealings with banks, so it is not surprising that the two know each other. However, it is usually the finance department that has more contact with the banks, and Su Yenner does not have much contact. "Are you here to eat, President Su?" "You are in box no. Znunks, I will toast you later." For a business like Longsheng, every bank is eager to woo it, so if Qian Jianjun can make friends with Su Yenner, he will definitely be happy. "When you were young, you begged the bank. But when you are strong enough, the bank will fawn all over you." Su Yenner replied lightly, "You're too kind, I appreciate your thoughtfulness." She had no intention of continuing the conversation with Qian Jianjun, and asked Zhao Xiaonian, "Why are you here?" "Of course I'm here to eat." Zhao Xiaonian was speechless. "Can't you see it so obviously?" Zhao Xiaonian's reply was casual, but to Qian Jianjun and Zhou Bohai, they heard another meaning. Everyone in Lingzhou knows that Su Yenner, the current helmsman of Longsheng, is notoriously arrogant. When she speaks to people, she exudes the air of a superior, and in the Lingzhou business community, she is known as the iceberg woman. When someone's family status is there for all to see, everyone is respectful when meeting her. But Zhao Xiaonian's tone just now was very casual, and there was even a hint of impatience. In their view, this was like poking the tiger's butt, and it was purely a recipe for trouble. But surprisingly, Su Yenner didn't seem to be angry. She casually glanced at the crowd and asked, "Are you treating?" "Not me, just my buddy." Zhao Xiaonian pointed at Zhang Haolong standing nearby. "Zhang Haolong, my good buddy." Su Yenner looked in the direction Zhao Xiaonian was pointing. Zhang Haolong immediately understood that Zhao Xiaonian was trying to introduce him to someone, so he hurriedly took out his business card and said, "President Su, I'm Zhang Haolong from Hongda Group. My father is Zhang Kenmin." Su Yenner didn't take the business card, but just glanced at Zhang Haolong and nodded slightly, as if to say that she had already met him. She still looked cold and arrogant. Zhang Haolong suddenly felt a bit awkward. He didn't know whether to continue holding the business card or take it back. Zhao Xiaonian couldn't bear to watch anymore, so he took the business card in Zhang Haolong's hand and grabbed Su Yenner's hand. "What are you doing?" Su Yenner's beautiful eyes narrowed. Zhao Xiaonian slapped the business card into her hand and said, "When someone gives you a business card, you should take it properly." "That's rude." Su Yenner glared at Zhao Xiaonian in dissatisfaction and looked at Zhang Haolong, but there was a little softening in her cold face. "I didn't mean anything else, I just don't have the habit of accepting other people's business cards." After saying that, she still put the business card into her bag. "It's fine, it's just that I was rude." Zhang Haolong said, flattered. The economic foundation determines the superstructure. Although Zhang Haolong just spoke harsh words with Guo Liang, it was because his family's Hongda group was higher than Guo Liang's family. But in front of Longsheng, it was completely not good enough. The CEO gave him face, and Zhao Xianyan was very grateful. He said in return, "You don't look well. Take care to get plenty of rest, and stay up late less often. I'll write you a prescription to help you feel better." Su Yener nodded non-committally. "Oh yes, it's your period today, so drink less alcohol, and preferably none at all," Zhao Xianyan added. As soon as he said this, Su Yener's face first flushed, and then instantly turned dark. "None of your business." After saying that, she stomped out of the private room in high heels with a domineering air. When she reached the door of the private room, she paused again, looked at Zhao Xianyan and said, "Don't forget to go see Grandpa in 3 days." "Okay, I know, I won't forget." Su Yener then took another step and disappeared from everyone's view. Ding, target Su Yener's favorability towards the host +10, current favorability 40. Zhao Xianyan, a single caring remark and her favorability goes up by 10 points? This domineering female CEO was really easy to fool. In the box at this time, everyone looked at Zhao Xianyan with a different kind of look in their eyes. In the eyes of President Qian, Zhao Xianyan's status had once again risen a few notches. The fact that he had personal savings of several billion yuan already made him look up to Zhao Xianyan, and his offer to provide several hundred million yuan in aid to Zhou Bohai was also quite acceptable. But he never expected that this young man actually knew Su Yener, and from listening to their conversation, especially Zhao Xianyan's casual tone towards Su Yener, it was obvious that their relationship was not ordinary. Could it be that the young man in front of him is the son of a wealthy family? Zhou Bohai also had this thought. Their company, Bohai Construction, could be said to have developed thanks to Longsheng Group. Although the cooperation was set up when Su Dajiang was in power, since Su Yener came to power, he has repeatedly knocked on the door to seek an audience, but was turned away by Su Yener's secretary. Su Yener, who had always been cold and arrogant, not only took the initiative to come in and say hello after she happened to meet Zhao Xianyan, but when Zhao Xianyan scolded her for not taking his business card, Su Yener was actually not angry, but instead went to explain. This unusual situation very much shows that the two have an extraordinary relationship. At least this junior, the daughter, is definitely someone with a background, and a very impressive one at that. As for Zhou Jiaying, she was thinking about another question: how did Zhao Xianyan know that Su Yener was on her period? You have to understand that for a man to know a woman's period so clearly, it's not just a matter of being acquaintances or friends. It's at least a very close person, and even if they're not a couple, they're not far off. Could it be that their relationship has already reached this level? Xianyan, thanks just now. Zhang Haolong walked over and patted Zhao Xianyan on the shoulder. Zhao Xianyan not only helped him out of the awkward situation, but Su Yener also accepted his business card, which means he is connected with Longsheng Group. This is networking. Apart from this, there is also Qian Jianjun's side. Although the relationship was only average, it was because of Zhao Xianyan that the other party later mentioned drinking with his father. Although he knows that this is just being polite, it is also the other party showing goodwill towards him. Zhao Xianyan waved his hand and coughed. "What are you being polite for?" "But don't mind her, she's just cold-hearted, she's not a bad person." "I know." "Xianyan, are you familiar with President Su?" Zhou Bohai couldn't help but ask. It was because of Longsheng Group that his family's Bohai Construction was experiencing difficulties. Although Zhao Xianyan had given them blood and relieved their urgent need, it was only a temporary solution. The person who started the problem must also be the one to solve it. If they could rely on Zhao Xianyan's connections to smooth things over with Longsheng Group, that would naturally be best. Not only would the group's problems be solved, it would even be possible to take things to the next level. Chapter 54, Manager Chao's Goodwill. Zhao Xianyan didn't think that far, and honestly replied that he had only met her a couple of times and was not very familiar with her. Everyone didn't believe him. How could someone not be familiar with someone and say something like that? That was ridiculous. But since Zhao Xianyan didn't want to say anything, no one else asked any more questions. After a few more polite exchanges, everyone tactfully excused themselves, and the box was once again just the three of them. After all the commotion caused by these people, the scene that was just so tense suddenly seemed a bit strange. Guo Liang in particular had already said his harsh words before, but now he couldn't decide whether to leave or not, so he just stood there, dumbfounded. Guo Liang looked at Zhao Xianyan, and he was now completely unsure of Zhao Xianyan's identity. He wasn't afraid of calling Zhang Haolong his brother. He could even hold his own when the bank president personally proposed a toast. His own uncle came to the door to thank him, and at worst he was scolded by his cousin. Originally, the combination of these three factors above meant that Guo Liang had to take them seriously. But now, even Su Yener of Longsheng Group seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with this loser. This was not the last straw that broke the camel's back, but a big move directly placed against his face. Now, the loser in his eyes has become a character that makes him involuntarily feel fear. His connections are extensive and his social status is high, which is something that a second-generation rich kid like him, who relies on his family to get by, can't compare to. Is it really worth it to make an enemy of someone like this over a woman? He has coveted He Fei for more than a day or two, so when He Fei approached him, he didn't even think about it and directly agreed, and even transferred 100,000 yuan on the spot. But no matter how beautiful a woman is, you have to be born with the right luck to enjoy her. He now even suspects that the one who helped He Fei was not some distant relative, but just an excuse. The one who really helped was Zhao Xianyan. In fact, the arrival of that group of people just now also shocked Zhang Haolong. He had been in the same dormitory as Zhao Xianyan for 3 years, and he had originally thought that he already knew everything about Zhao Xianyan, but now he realized that the other person seemed not to be as simple as he understood. But he knew that this was not the time to ask detailed questions. After all, there was still an outsider, Guo Liang. At this moment, when Guo Liang looked so conflicted and confused, Zhang Haolong just wanted to laugh. It was really satisfying. Before, Guo Liang was so arrogant that he didn't even give Zhang Haolong face. I guess he must be regretting it now. Guo Liang, let's get back to what happened just now. Zhang Haolong asked, looking at Guo Liang, but his expression was a little playful. Regarding He Fei, are you really not going to make a big deal out of a small one? This is killing someone by attacking their heart. Zhao Xianyan's eyes also looked at Guo Liang. Although he was reluctant, the situation was stronger than the person, and Guo Liang had to give in. Forget it, let's just leave it at that. However, I want to ask you a question. Guo Liang looked at Zhao Xianyan and asked, the person who helped He Fei was actually you, wasn't it? Yes. Zhao Xianyan also admitted it very simply. The distant relative had originally just given He Fei an excuse, and since things had come to this point, there was no need for him to hide it. Guo Liang looked at Zhao Xianyan for a few seconds again, then walked out of the box without saying a word. This kid has suffered a great loss today, and he definitely won't let it go. After Guo Liang left, Zhang Haolong took out a cigarette and handed it to Zhao Xianyan, and then took one out for himself and lit up. Exhaling a puff of smoke, Zhang Haolong continued, although I didn't grow up knowing everything about him, I still know the boy's character. Don't look at him, he seems like a big shot, but in fact, he's really petty. Zhao Xianyan rarely smoked, but he also lit up a cigarette with Zhang Haolong. There's nothing I can do about it. If he's going to keep badgering me, I'll just have to deal with it. Anyway, I'm curious about you. Zhang Haolong changed the subject to Zhao Xianyan. If I hadn't come out to help today, I wouldn't have known that you're such a big shot. Shen Jianjun is a man who won't give up until he gets what he wants, so if he came to make a toast himself, you must have something he wants, either money or power. And what's with that Zhou Jiaying? I've heard a lot about the recent troubles at their Bohai Construction. But judging by the way Zhou Bohai looked today, it seems like they've been resolved. You didn't happen to solve them, did you? And how do you know Su Yener? Even your aunt knows that, so don't tell me you two aren't close. Zhang Haolong dumped all his questions on him. There was no other way, he really couldn't figure it out, and if he didn't find out what was going on, he definitely wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. Zhao Xianyan knew that some things could not be hidden forever. If he couldn't find out the truth, he would definitely not be able to sleep tonight. Since Zhang Haolong had asked, he might as well just come clean. I made some investments and earned some money. Then the bank assigned me a dedicated customer service representative. Just as it happened, Zhou Jiaying approached me because of their family's situation, and just as it happened to be within my capabilities, I invested the money in Bohai Construction. As for Su Yener, I really didn't lie. Including today, I've met with her 3 times. But I know her grandfather. I can tell you what I can, but as for things like the system and cashback, Zhao Xianyan would never tell anyone until the day he died. Zhang Haolong is worthy of being the quasi-successor of a group, and immediately grasped the main point. Getting the bank to assign a dedicated customer service representative and being able to help Bohai Construction solve its problems. How much money have you made exactly? Zhao Xianyan gave an ambiguous figure, a few hundred million, I think. Zhang Haolong's hand trembled, and the cigarette fell directly into the bone dish in front of him. I'm so shocked. You call earning a few 100 million making a bit of money? You're really humble. Zhang Haolong didn't ask Zhao Xianyan how he earned it, as it was pointless. If he could have said, Zhao Xianyan would have already said it, rather than just mentioning it in passing. The delay caused the food on the table to get cold. The two didn't care, and they picked up their chopsticks and started to wolf down their food, just like they did in school. After they had eaten and drunk their fill, the two went downstairs. Zhang Haolong went straight to the front desk to settle the bill. They had spent a total of more than 9,000 yuan. Zhang Haolong was about to pay when he was stopped by Zhao Xianyan. You came here for my sake, so it wouldn't be appropriate for you to pay for this meal. Zhang Xiaolong did not refuse. Since Zhao Xianyan was now rich, there was no need for him to argue over such a trivial matter, as it would be beneath his dignity. As soon as they had finished paying, the previous manager, Chao, walked over with a smile. He first greeted Zhang Haolong, and then Chao took out a card with the Regal Hotel logo on it and handed it to Zhao Xianyan. Mr. Zhao, this is our hotel's gold card, please accept it. Chapter 55, Is it my feet that smell? Seeking collection and more chapters. Seeing this gold card, Zhang Haolong's eyelids twitched, and he looked at Manager Chao and laughed. Manager Chao, you're being too generous, just handing out a gold card. Zhao Xianyan didn't quite understand, isn't this just a membership card? A gold card, 20% off, you can book the best 6 private rooms, and you can charge up to 500,000 yuan. Zhang Haolong explained with a smile, and even showed a jealous expression. My father only got this card last year, so you must be very well connected. Zhao Xianyan was also taken aback when he heard this. He didn't realize that this card had such a prestigious background. He immediately took the gold card and said, Thank you, Manager Chao. Manager Chao smiled and escorted the two of them to the door. Zhang Haolong looked at Zhao Xianyan and said, How are you going home? Why don't you wait with me and I'll give you a ride later? Zhao Xianyan thought about it for a moment and said, Forget it, it's not on the way, and I'll call a designated driver. Zhao Xianyan forgot about this when he was eating, but driving after drinking is not allowed. You already bought a car? Zhang Haolong asked. Zhao Xianyan proudly took out the car keys and pressed a button. Then the headlights of a black Ferrari 812 flashed twice in front of the gate. Zhang Haolong. Sorry, Manager Yi, I'm going to trouble you to drive me. This was Zhao Xianyan's first time sitting in the passenger seat of the Ferrari 812. You're welcome. Yi Lingshan, who was driving, glanced ahead and replied without daring to turn her head. Yi Lingshan was very nervous at this moment. Her hands, which were gripping the steering wheel, were a little wet, and her right foot, which was wrapped in stockings and was on the accelerator, was beginning to tingle slightly. Because it was the first time she had driven a sports car, she was not used to the seat of a sports car, and she had to straighten her body, with her exaggeratedly full breasts almost touching the steering wheel. Don't be nervous. Seeing Yi Lingshan in this state, Zhao Xianyan became nervous as well. Yi Lingshan let out a small sound, but continued to drive in this very uncomfortable position. Zhao Xianyan didn't bother to persuade her, and looked out the window at the scenery slowly passing by, also feeling very helpless. At this speed, when will they get home? He now regretted agreeing to Qian Jianjun's request for Yi Lingshan to drive him home. If he had found a designated driver, he would probably be in bed by now. Not long ago, Zhao Xianyan was about to call a designated driver when Qian Jianjun and Zhou Bohai and the others finished eating and came downstairs. As soon as he heard that Zhao Xianyan was about to call a designated driver, Qian Jianjun said that Yi Lingshan would drive him home. Tonight, because they were having dinner with friends like Zhou Bohai, Yi Lingshan didn't drink, which meant that she only took a small sip when she clinked glasses with Zhao Xianyan, which was almost the same as not drinking. Zhao Xianyan originally disagreed, but he couldn't resist Qian Jianjun's repeated persuasion. So he reluctantly agreed. After all, it was a good thing to have a sexy young woman drive you home. What he didn't expect, however, was that this female driver recommended by Qian Jianjun was indeed very female, and she drove the sports car with a 0-100 km h time of 3 seconds at a speed of 40 miles per hour. Perhaps Yi Lingshan was also a little embarrassed, and sheepishly explained, Mr. Zhao, this is the first time I've driven a sports car, so I'm a little slow. It's okay, safety first, that's fine. What else could Zhao Xianyan say? Zhao Xianyan rolled down the window and felt the coolness of the late summer. Ah, that Zhao Xianyan, is it my feet that stink? That person driving in high heels is not very safe. Yi Lingshan subconsciously took a deep breath and sniffed, as if she didn't smell any foot odor. Zhao Xiaoyan was amused by the brain circuitry of this sexy young woman, and waved his hand and laughed. No, I just want to feel the breeze. Then he tilted his head to the side and looked at Yi Lingshan, who was staring at the road with wide eyes. Yi Lingshan's appearance belongs to the type of very virtuous wife and good mother, beautiful but not showy, but the more you look at it, the more you can see. Although she is already 31 years old, I don't know if it is because she takes good care of herself or she has a good natural foundation, there is not a single trace of age on her face. Together with the pair of gold-rimmed glasses on her nose, she gives off a unique charm of a mature woman. In particular, her figure can be judged by the system to be 99 out of 100, which shows how advantageous her body is and how sexy her figure is. It seems that she noticed Zhao Xiaoyan's gaze, so Yi Lingshan quickly glanced over to the side, then continued to look straight ahead and said, "Mr. Zhao, are you in a hurry? Should I drive faster?" "No, it's fine." Ring. At this moment, Yi Lingshan's phone in her bag rang. A hint of anxiety appeared on Yi Lingshan's face, but she kept her eyes on the road and didn't answer it. The look of wanting to answer the phone but afraid of being distracted while driving was really obvious. "Manager Yi. Do you want me to get your phone for you?" Zhao Xiaoyan asked. Yi Lingshan thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll trouble you, Mr. Zhao. It might be my mother calling. She's home alone." Zhao Xiaoyan reached out and took the bag Yi Lingshan had placed next to her seat, and took out her phone from it. "Is it really your mother calling? Do you want me to answer it for you on speakerphone?" "Yes, please." Zhao Xiaoyan pressed the answer button and clicked on speakerphone. The next moment, the voice of an old woman came through the phone. Shan, have you gone home yet?" Yi Lingshan, who was driving, quickly replied, "Mom, I won't be home for a while." "Don't wait up for me, just go to bed." "Oh, your bank manager is so bad. He always calls you to entertain clients, accompanying this one and that one. He doesn't care about your reputation as a woman." Hearing her mother say such things, Yi Lingshan quickly interrupted, "Mom, it's all part of my job. I'm driving, so go to bed early. How can I sleep when you're not here? Today, the old lady next door, Lu, was gossiping about you again. If it's really not possible, then talk to your bank manager and tell him not to take you to entertain those dubious clients in the future." "Oh, Mom, why are you saying this? I still have clients here." Yi Lingshan became a little anxious and regretted answering the phone. Zhao Xiaoyan, who was holding the phone, was innocently caught in the crossfire. Without thinking, Yi Lingshan took the phone from Zhao Xiaoyan's hand and hung up the phone. Then she placed the phone directly on her skirt. After glancing at Zhao Xiaoyan's face, Yi Lingshan said apologetically, "Mr. Zhao, I'm sorry, my mother is just worried about me," and she spoke without thinking. She didn't mean anything by it. "I understand. By the way, does your bank president often ask you to go out for entertainment?" Zhao Xiaoyan asked curiously. After all, banks also have performance pressure. If some clients don't entertain, they may not cooperate with our family. After all, there are so many banks now, it's not hard to find one. Then why do you always have to go? Because you're pretty? Chapter 56. Zhao Xiaoyan wants to start a business for old book fans. Yi Lingshan blushed, and although she was embarrassed, she nodded. "Have you met any bad customers?" "Yes, a few times. But I politely refused. It's really getting out of hand, and our president will help stop it." Zhao Xiaoyan listened to the words and suddenly felt that Chen Jianjun was still okay, at least he was not the kind of person who would sacrifice his subordinates for the sake of profit. "Do you like to entertain?" "To be honest, I don't like it." Zhao Xiaoyan believed this. Just take tonight as an example. He saw Chen Jianjun signal Yi Lingshan to drink a toast to him, and Yi Lingshan drank it. I guess without Chen Jianjun's special instructions, she probably wouldn't have drunk that sip of wine. It seems that she is still a woman who keeps herself clean. "If you don't like it, why don't you tell your bank manager?" Yi Lingshan sighed. "The industry is not easy, and he has taken good care of me." Zhao Xiaoyan didn't ask anymore, but just said leisurely, "These days, it's not easy for anyone." Ding, target Yi Lingshan's favorability +5, current favorability 5. Zhao Xiaoyan was surprised to hear the long-lost system prompt. He had been bound to Yi Lingshan for so long and had been in contact for some time, but her favorability had never gone up. He didn't expect it to go up just from chatting. "Manager Yi, are you planning to change jobs? For example, working with me?" "Working with yourself, of course, is the proper kind of work." Although this dinner tonight resolved the matter of He Fei, it also made Zhao Xiaoyan realize that these days, you have to have strength to do anything. The reason Zhang Haolong dared to pressure Zhou Liang into submission was because Zhang Haolong's family was stronger than Zhou Liang's. Why was there such a big contrast between Zhou Liang before and after? One second he looked like he would never give up, and the next second he just gave in. The reason is actually very straightforward. It was because of the people in the private room that made Zhou Liang mistakenly believe that Zhao Xiaoyan was very powerful. Although it was a bit like a fox pretending to be a tiger, it was enough to intimidate Zhou Liang. What is strength? In the final analysis, it is money. But you can't just show everyone your bank account to demonstrate how wealthy you are, can you? So, the most intuitive thing is your career, and to put it more bluntly, how big your business is. This is the same principle as many women using what car they drive and what house they live in to measure the thickness of a man's wallet. The money in the bank account is invisible, and only the physical object is the most direct manifestation. So, Zhao Xiaoyan wanted to start a business. Or, every man has a dream of being the boss, second only to marrying a beautiful and intelligent wife. But when it comes to starting a company, Zhao Xiaoyan is a complete novice. He hasn't even thought about what kind of company to start or which industry to enter. After all, there is too little time. You can't rush these things, you have to think clearly before you act, and it's best to ask someone with experience. Why not? That old man Su Zhang would be a good choice. But there is one thing he knows: when you are the boss, you need people under you. A sole proprietor is just a self-employed person. Although he didn't have much contact with Yi Lingshan, he could at least tell that Yi Lingshan was absolutely dedicated to her work. Plus, she had worked in a bank before, so he believed she was still quite capable when it came to matters related to money. Therefore, Zhao Xiaoyan tried to recruit her. I have no intention of changing jobs for the time being, so I'm sorry. But thank you, Mr. Zhao. Zhao Xiaoyan felt it was normal to be rejected. They say that having a phoenix tree attracts golden phoenixes. The seeds of his own phoenix tree haven't even taken root yet. Yi Lingshan drove directly to the garage of Villa 8. Zhao Xiaoyan originally wanted to politely invite the other person to have a cup of water, but thinking that the other person's mother was probably still waiting for her daughter to come home, he also thanked her and sent her off. He Fei still hadn't returned tonight, and the empty villa with Zhao Xiaoyan alone in it looked very desolate. Zhao Xiaoyan had wanted to talk to He Fei about Guo Liang, but he thought it might not be convenient since she was in the hospital, so he didn't call, but just sent a WeChat message. Guo Liang's matter was now over. The next morning, Zhao Xiaoyan still went to the first hospital. First, He Fei had been in the hospital the past 2 days, and he was a little worried, so he just came to check up on her. Second, he also wanted to come and see how his sister's brother was doing this time and show his concern. After all, He Fei was already his person, so he loved the family. Last time, He Fei had mentioned that her brother was in the immunology department, so Zhao Xiaoyan went directly to the inpatient building this time. The immunology department and the pediatric ward were on the same floor. Zhao Xiaoyan walked over to the nurse's station to ask where He Fei's brother was staying, but realized that he didn't even know what his brother's name was. Fortunately, the surname he is not as common as Wang Lin, Li Chen, etc., and the nurse told Zhao Xiaoyan directly after hearing that it was a secondary immune disease. Bed 34. Following the numbering on the wall of the ward, Zhao Xiaoyan finally saw the ward where bed 34 was located. But before he reached the door, Zhao Xiaoyan heard the voices coming from inside through the open ward door. We want to change wards. Our child can't stay here. Beds are currently in short supply, and there are really no other empty beds. No, my child can't stay with that child. What if he gets infected? This is a secondary immunodeficiency disease, it's not contagious. I don't care. Either he moves out, or you have to change our ward. Zhao Xiaoyan stood outside the door and saw an obese young woman hugging her child, arguing with the nurse. He Fei, on the other hand, was supporting a middle-aged woman in her 40s, expressionlessly watching the two of them. Although the middle-aged woman was old, she looked a bit like He Fei between the eyebrows, and she must be He Fei's mother. Judging from the situation, Zhao Xiaoyan guessed the general situation. It was probably this obese young woman who, upon learning that there was a patient with immune system problems in the same ward, became a little scared. It's not that she was being malicious, but as parents, they were also concerned about their children's health, which was understandable. Besides, she hadn't said anything extreme. Since the door was not closed, Zhao Xiaoyan simply walked right in. He Fei was the first to notice Zhao Xiaoyan's entrance. At the moment she saw Zhao Xiaoyan, He Fei was slightly stunned, then a little embarrassed, a little at a loss, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. Obviously, she didn't expect Zhao Xianyan to actually come. His mother noticed her daughter's unusual behavior and looked towards the door. She saw a boy carrying a fruit basket walk in. He immediately put on a smile when he saw her. "Hello, Auntie. I'm He Fei's friend. I heard that your brother is in the hospital, so I came to visit." As he spoke, Zhao Xianyan placed the fruit basket on the table next to the hospital bed. Chapter 57, Changing Wards, a bonus for old fans. At this time, there was a boy about 7 or 8 years old lying on the hospital bed. The boy was quite handsome, and would definitely become a handsome man in the future. Unfortunately, due to his illness, his face was not very good, and it was a bit pale. "Thank you, you are very kind." His mother also squeezed a shallow smile on her face. The nurse and the young woman also stopped talking when they saw someone come in. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhao Xianyan looked at the nurse and asked, "Miss Nurse, is there a VLP ward or a single room here?" "Yes, there is, but it's quite expensive." "It's okay if it's more expensive, I'll pay for it. If possible, we want to change now." "Okay, I'll go and check for you." When the obese young woman saw that Zhao Xianyan wanted to change wards, she didn't say anything else. She quickly started making the bed for her child and pulled up the curtain between the two beds. "Oh, no, I can't let you go to the trouble. We're fine here, there's no need to change." His mother knew that Zhao Xianyan was being kind, but after all, she was only her daughter's friend, not related. And the VLP ward here is quite expensive. She was embarrassed to let someone else pay. "It's fine, Auntie. This is what I should do." Zhao Xianyan's words stunned his mother, and then she looked at her daughter. She saw her daughter's face turn a little red, and she didn't dare look at her. VLP in the hospital room. His mother was organizing the things she had brought, while He Fei took the opportunity to pull Zhao Xianyan aside. "Why are you here? You haven't returned to the villa for 2 days. I just came by to see if there was anything I could help with." It had only been 2 days since she had last seen him, but He Fei had visibly lost weight, and there were already light circles under her eyes, clearly indicating that she had not had a good night's rest in the past 2 days. Hearing Zhao Xianyan's words of concern, He Fei felt a sweet sensation in her heart. "I'm fine, don't worry about me. It's all good here, and now that we've been moved to a different room, my mom and I have a place to rest at night." "What about his illness?" "This time, he was also hospitalized due to a bacterial infection, but it's basically stabilized now. The doctor said that my brother can be discharged in 2 days, but we still need to pay more attention in the future." "Do you have enough money? If not, remember to let me know. You and I don't need to be polite, okay?" Zhao Xianyan still felt an inexplicable sentiment in his heart for the first woman to successfully fight back 100%. He Fei nodded obediently. "Enough, there's still a lot more. I'll let you know when I run out." At this time, his mother also finished packing her things. Seeing the two of them talking, and looking at the woman's expression, his mother also guessed who the other person was. "You must be Xiao Zhao, come sit over here, Auntie wants to have a little chat with you." He's smiling and waving at Zhao Xianyan. "Oh, okay." Zhao Xianyan looked at He Fei strangely, and He Fei hurriedly explained, "My parents asked where the money came from when I suddenly took out so much." "So? How did you introduce our relationship?" Zhao Xianyan said mockingly. "Just say you're friends." As she spoke, He Fei's face flushed again. Zhao Xianyan noticed that He Fei really blushed easily and had a thin skin. Zhao Xianyan sat down next to Yimu, and for some reason, he suddenly felt like a son-in-law meeting his mother-in-law for the first time. "Zhao Xianyan, thank you so much this time." "Thank you, Auntie. If you weren't willing to lend our family money, we wouldn't know what to do in the future. Jia is also a child with a hard life, and she actually got this kind of disease. I quit my job to take care of Jia. It's up to Fei Fei's father to carry the whole family alone." After a few words, his mother's eyes reddened and tears fell. He Fei quickly took out a tissue to wipe her mother's tears. "Mom, it's okay, everything will be fine. You shouldn't be too sad either." Zhao Xianyan also followed up with a few words of comfort. At this time, the door to the VLP ward was pushed open from the outside, and the doctor came in with the nurse to check on the patients. The doctor checked on Jia's condition and looked at the test reports from the past 2 days. This time, the condition is basically stable. Tomorrow, after observation, if there are no problems, he can be discharged from the hospital. After discharge, attention should still be paid to the home environment to avoid excessive contact with germs. Upon hearing this, his mother naturally thanked him repeatedly. It is estimated that among all the professions that charge for their services, doctors and teachers are the only ones who can make people spend money and still be grateful. Zhao Xiaoyan suddenly remembered that He Fei had said before that their family had sold their house and car to pay for her brother He Jia's treatment, and had taken He Fei in. He asked in a low voice, "Where are you living now?" "My father found a house to rent over by Jiaohe." Jiaohe is in the suburbs, Zhao Xiaoyan knew, and the rent there was half as cheap as in the city. But precisely because it was cheap, the people living there were all migrant workers except for the indigenous people. Living so far away is inconvenient. How about this, you ask your parents to move to the villa, there are enough rooms anyway. He Fei shook her head, "No need, that's your house, it's not convenient for my parents to live there." "That's your house. I have a place to live, you just tell your parents to move in. Even if they don't consider themselves, they have to consider your younger brother. The doctor has said that attention should be paid to the living environment. The environment and air in the villa are very suitable for your younger brother's recovery." After hearing that it was for the sake of her brother, He Fei thought about it for a while and did not refuse anymore. After the doctor left, Zhao Xiaoyan chatted with He Fei's mother for a while before getting up to leave. The hospital is not a place to keep people, so He Fei's mother said to He Fei, "Fei, you see Zhao Xiaoyan out." He Fei walked Zhao Xiaoyan to the front of the inpatient building. "I'll go, you go up." "Okay." Zhao Xiaoyan turned to leave. "Xiaoyan." He Fei called out to him again. As soon as Zhao Xiaoyan turned around, He Fei put her arms around his neck and leaned in. The beautiful woman threw herself into his arms, and naturally Zhao Xiaoyan returned the embrace without any hesitation. "Xiaoyan, thank you," He Fei whispered in Zhao Xiaoyan's arms. "Thank you for what?" "Thank you for being the one I met that day." After saying that, He Fei got out of Zhao Xiaoyan's arms, looked deeply at him, and then kissed him on the mouth. The little girl actually made a sneak attack. Zhao Xiaoyan was about to retaliate with his mouth when he noticed that He Fei's face looked a little strange, and his gaze directly passed Zhao Xiaoyan. Zhao Xiaoyan subconsciously turned around and saw a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s standing 3 or 4 meters behind him. The middle-aged man's hair was already noticeably white, and the whole person looked like he was in poor spirits. He just quietly watched the two of them. "Dad!" He Fei's cry of "Dad" stunned Zhao Xiaoyan. Chapter 58, Visiting for Advice, a bonus chapter for old fans. Making out with his daughter in front of his father was the moment of death for the society. The middle-aged man then walked up, and He Fei hurriedly introduced slightly nervously, "Dad, this is Zhao Xiaoyan." Zhao Xiaoyan hurriedly said, "Uncle." The middle-aged man nodded, then looked at He Fei and said, "You go up first, I want to talk to Xiao Zhao for a while." "Dad." "Obey, go up." He Fei nibbled her lips lightly, looked at Zhao Xiaoyan, and then slowly walked towards the inpatient building, looking back the whole time. After making sure that He Fei had gone in, He Fei's father pointed to a bench not far away and said to Zhao Xiaoyan, "Let's go over there and chat." After saying this, his father took the lead and walked over to the bench, and Zhao Xiaoyan had no choice but to follow. His father, Mr. Zhao. "You can just call me Zhao Xiao or Xiaoyan." His father did not correct his own title and continued, "Mr. Zhao, I would like to thank you first for lending a helping hand when our family was in trouble. Our family really did need money at the time, so this money can be considered as me, He Guozhang, borrowing from Mr. Zhao, and has nothing to do with my daughter." Upon hearing this, Zhao Xiaoyan's eyebrows raised imperceptibly, but he did not say anything, waiting for He Guozhang's next words. Sure enough, after saying this, He Guozhang looked at Zhao Xiaoyan and said, "I hope Mr. Zhao will leave my daughter alone. You two are not a good match." Zhao Xiaoyan did not expect He Guozhang to be so direct right from the start. "How do you know it's not a good match?" "I know my own daughter, who I have watched grow up. She tells her mother and me everything. Some time ago, she told her mother that she didn't want to go to school anymore and that she didn't like dancing. We knew that she was lying, because she loved dancing so much, but she said that she wanted to give it up because her brother's illness needed a lot of money and she wanted to lighten our burden. But after a few days, she suddenly gave me 6 million yuan, saying that she had the money to pay for her brother's treatment. We asked her where she got so much money, and she said that she had borrowed it from a friend. What kind of friend lends 6 million yuan all at once in our family's situation? To put it bluntly, it's like throwing money into the water." He Guozhang said, took out a cigarette, but did not offer it to Zhao Xiaoyan, lit it himself, took a drag, exhaled a pale blue cloud of smoke, and continued, "I'm afraid this girl has done something stupid, and I'm afraid that because of the 6 million yuan, she's ruined herself." Mr. Zhao, you understand what I mean, don't you? Having said that, Zhao Xiaoyan understood. As the saying goes, a father knows his son better than anyone else. In fact, He Fei had really done something. She had sold herself by selling her virginity. But because of a strange twist of fate, she had been involved, and the whole thing had become a bit strange. She had bought it and actually slept with him, but on second thought, it was actually the same as what He Fei had thought before. Therefore, Mr. Zhao, this money has nothing to do with Fei Fei. He Guo Liang, borrowed it from you. I hope you won't use this as a threat to make my daughter do anything. Of course, if you want to take back this money, He Guo Liang, will pay you back. No need. I promised He Fei at the beginning that the money was for her and there is no need to pay it back. I understand what you mean. I promised you that I will not use this as a threat to make He Fei do anything. When He Guo Liang heard this, his face obviously eased a bit. Zhao Xiaoyan continued, but if He Fei really wants to be with me, I hope you won't object. Upon hearing this, He Guo Liang stood up and looked at Zhao Xiaoyan. You. Dad. At this moment, a clear voice sounded, and it was He Fei returning. It turned out that He Fei had not actually gone far, but had been hiding nearby and observing. She had heard roughly what her father had said in the two people's conversation. She was touched by her father's protection of her, but she was also a little afraid. She had already given everything to Zhao Xiaoyan, and she had even fallen in love with him. Now that her father was against the two of them getting together, how could she possibly agree? It was true that her relationship with Zhao Xiaoyan had started with money, but Zhao Xiaoyan had never forced her to do anything, and he had been really good to her. She didn't want to get involved, but when she saw her father stand up, she was afraid that if she didn't say anything, the two most important men in her life would end up having a fight, so she quickly stepped forward. He Fei's appearance interrupted the conversation between the two men. He Guo Liang wanted to say something else, but was pulled away by his daughter. Zhao Xiaoyan also lost interest in the conversation and left the hospital directly, driving straight to the Su family mansion. When he arrived at the Su family mansion, Su Dajiang was sitting in a wheelchair, basking in the not-too-hot morning sun. Looking at the small bamboo grove in the courtyard of the old mansion, which was already showing signs of yellowing, Zhao Xiaoyan felt a little bit like autumn had arrived. The old man looked quite sprightly, although his hands and feet were not yet nimble, but his facial expressions looked fine. Isn't tomorrow the day of your treatment? Why are you here today? Although Su Dajiang was surprised by Zhao Xiaoyan's arrival, he could tell that he was very happy. I have something I want to ask you about. I want to start a business. Zhao Xiaoyan found himself a stool and sat down next to Su Dajiang. Start a business? That's great. What are you going to do? I don't know. You don't know what to do and you call that starting a business? It's just an idea. Su Dajiang really wanted to slap the boy on the head, but since his hands were still weak, he had to give up. You dare to say you want to start a business without having anything planned? You think this is a game? Zhao Xiaoyan blushed. I really don't know what to do. If you want to start a business because you're bored, then go to Longsheng. I'll have Yenner arrange for you to be a department manager. It'll be good for you to spend more time together. This old man is still trying to match Su Yenner and Zhao Xiaoyan up. I don't know what he's thinking. Zhao Xiaoyan waved his hands quickly. I'm not going to Longsheng, that would be working for someone else. I told you, I want to start my own business, I want to be my own boss. You haven't thought about anything, and you're talking about starting a business. Su Dajiang glared at Zhao Xiaoyan impatiently. I haven't thought about it, that's why I'm here to ask you, the richest man in Lingzhou. If I had already thought about it, I would have already done it. Just tell me, what do you think I'm suited for? Listen carefully, kid. Starting a business cannot be done on a whim, and it is even less about just plunging in without thinking, regardless of the consequences. So think about it. What are you good at, and what are your strengths? There are 365 professions in the world, so which one can you do? Su Dajiang spoke patiently, as if teaching his own nephew. Let's start with the big ones. You need to identify at least one of the following: food, clothing, housing, transportation, and entertainment. And you also need a team. You cannot make a forest out of a single tree, you cannot do anything alone, you need people. Chapter 59, Initial Thoughts for Old Book Fans. Seeing that Zhao Xiaoyan was only thinking about it, Su Dajiang said with a smile, haste makes waste. You need to think more before you do it, and once you start, you shouldn't waver. I understand what you're saying, but I really don't know what I'm suited to do. Then just think about it. Let's not talk about the distant future, but let's start with your young preferences and do something in a new industry. The investment is small, and the return is big. Even if you lose money, you can stop losing money in time. At this point, Su Dazhang asked a key question. Also, starting a business requires seed money. How much have you prepared to start a business? Do you want the old man to support you a little? Zhao Xiaoyan didn't need to worry about money. No, I should have enough money. As long as I don't touch industries like real estate, I should have more than enough. How much money can there be? Wow, that's a big mouth. So how much have you prepared to start a business? Su Dazhang was amused by Zhao Xiaoyan's tone. In his eyes, Zhao Xiaoyan was just a young kid who had not graduated from university and had not gone to work. A few billion yuan. That should be enough. Zhao Xiaoyan said calmly. Su Dazhang froze after hearing the figure. As the richest man in Lingzhou, this amount of money was nothing in his eyes. But Zhao Xiaoyan was able to come up with so much capital to start a business, which really surprised Su Dazhang. Kid, be honest with me, what does your family do? Why are you asking me this again? I already told you last time, my parents used to be teachers. Besides, I earned all my money myself. Zhao Xiaoyan knew what Su Dazhang meant. But the fact that he had the system was something he could never tell anyone, and would remain a secret for the rest of his life. Where did you earn it? Su Dazhang was even more curious. I earned it from investing over the past few years. Zhao Xiaoyan blushed but remained calm. The money the system gave him did not appear out of thin air. For the legitimacy of the money, the system had even opened an account for him abroad. However, the management rights of the account were all with the system, and Zhao Xiaoyan did not know how the system had done it. Since you can earn so much money from your investments, why not simply set up an investment company? Well, these words stumped Zhao Xiaoyan. However, on second thought, it didn't seem impossible. At noon, Zhao Xiaoyan had lunch at the Su family mansion. This time, it wasn't as sumptuous as last time, and they ate some home-cooked food. Su De, because Zhang is still unable to eat well, was fed by Afu. After leaving the Su family mansion, Zhao Xiaoyan drove directly to Longsheng Group. This was an idea that Su Dazhang, the old master Su, gave Zhao Xiaoyan. In Su Dazhang's own words, Zhao Xiaoyan is now like a foolish man with a lot of money, who knows nothing. If he doesn't have someone capable and decent by his side to help him, he's just waiting to lose money. So he suggested that Zhao Xiaoyan go to Su Yener and see if he could borrow some people from her. Zhao Xiaoyan naturally accepted Su Dazhang's kindness. After all, he is starting his own business, and Zhao Xiaoyan doesn't want to lose money. Longsheng Building. It can be considered an iconic building in Lingzhou. The 28-story high-rise is not the tallest or largest office building in Lingzhou, but it is definitely the most valuable. This is because the entire Longsheng building is the property of the number 1 group in Lingzhou. Zhao Xiaoyan parked the Ferrari 812 in the underground parking lot of the Longsheng building. Since he did not have an elevator access card, he had to take the elevator from the underground garage to the first floor lobby, and then take the elevator from the lobby to the upper floors. The internal elevators also have access control gates. Zhao Xiaoyan had to go to the reception desk in the lobby to register again. This was Zhao Xiaoyan's first time at Longsheng Group. As a well-known Lingzhou Group company, Longsheng Group's overall decoration is still very grand, as can be seen from the lobby on the first floor, which is nearly 10 meters high. The marble floor is spotless and so shiny that it can reflect a person's shadow. In the center is a large chandelier with a diameter of 10 meters, and the whole air exudes a faint, sweet fragrance. On the wall opposite the door on the first floor, the 4 gold-painted characters of Longsheng Group are eye-catching and imposing under the refraction of light. At the lobby service desk, there are several receptionists in black uniforms standing. At this time, Zhao Xiaoyan's phone rang, and it was actually Su Yener calling. Hello. Su Yener's cold voice came through the receiver. Where are you? How did you know I was coming? Zhao Xiaoyan realized that he had asked a stupid question. Su Yener would know that he was coming because Su Dazhang had told her. What do you think? Su Yener snapped, cut the crap, I have another meeting later. Say, where are you? I'm in the lobby of your building, I'll check in first. Seeing Zhao Xiaoyan walking over, one of the receptionists flashed a professional smile and said, Hello, how can I help you? Just a moment. Zhao Xiaoyan said into the phone, moved the phone away from his ear, and returned a polite smile, saying, Hello, I'm going up, could you please open the gate? The receptionist smiled at Zhao Xiaoyan and asked, Hello, may I ask if you are here to visit or apply for a job? We need you to register your identity information before we can let you go up. I'm here to. It's you. Zhao Xiaoyan was about to speak when a middle-aged man in a suit suddenly appeared next to him. The middle-aged man looked at Zhao Xiaoyan and pointed at him, exclaiming, "It really is you." Zhao Xiaoyan also recognized the middle-aged man as the driver of the Rolls-Royce he had met in the alley the other day when he went to the hospital. He remembered Su Yener calling him Lao He. "It's you, what a coincidence." Zhao Xiaoyan is actually quite easygoing. Although he had a minor disagreement with Lao He that day, it was not a big deal and he did not take it to heart. Since they met again the next day, Zhao Xiaoyan still greeted the man politely. Zhao Xiaoyan did not hold grudges over the matter of yielding the road yesterday, but that did not mean Lao He did not. He saw Lao He's face turn pale, a grunt came from his nose, and he said in a condescending tone, "Little brat, what are you doing here at Longsheng?" Then he looked Zhao Xiaoyan up and down. Seeing that he was dressed casually and not very old, he assumed that he was here for a job interview. With a sneer, he said, "Oh. You're here for an interview? Let me tell you, not just anyone can work at Longsheng. You can go now. We don't want someone like you here." Lao He was furious when he saw Zhao Xiaoyan. He had been driving that day and the kid had actually dared to not give way, which had made him feel bad the whole day. Chapter 60, Little Brats Are Hard to Deal With. Zhao Xiaoyan was also angry when he saw Lao He's attitude. "If someone treats me with respect, I will return the favor. If someone offends me, I will repay them in kind. Even if I am here for an interview, the decision is still up to the Human Resources Department. When did it become your job as a driver to make the final decision? You." Lao He hates it when people call him a driver, even though he is indeed a driver. However, because he drives the boss and is considered a close associate, the whole group gives him face to a certain extent and calls him Assistant He. "I'll tell you, as long as I'm here, you're not going in. Get out of here." Zhao Xiaoyan didn't want to deal with Lao He and turned to the receptionist who had just spoken to him. Pointing to a notebook on the service desk, he asked, "Is this where I register?" Lao He did throw the register book away, saying, "No need to register, just get out." Lao He was the president's driver. The receptionist saw that Lao He had spoken, and although she felt that something was wrong, she did not dare offend him. Although she heard Zhao Xiaoyan's words, she could only pretend that she hadn't heard and act as if she was busy with something. This action of the receptionist immediately made Zhao Xiaoyan's original favorable impression of her plummet to a low point. She slammed her hand on the reception desk and said, "Great, this is the Longsheng Group's hospitality, isn't it? When a guest arrives, no matter what, they just block them outside, right?" Thinking that Su Yener's phone call had not been hung up, Zhao Xiaoyan was just about to tell Su Yener about this matter. But then he heard Lao He yelling again over there. "I don't care why you're here, but I said I won't let you in, so don't even think about it." Lao He was feeling very pleased with himself. He had been able to get his revenge just a few days after it had been done, and he was determined to take this opportunity to humiliate the young man who had dared to stand in his way. Zhao Xiaoyan held his phone and looked at Lao He. "Are you sure you won't let me in?" "Yes, as long as I'm here, you won't be able to get into Longsheng." "Where are the security guards?" "Security guards, hurry up and get this person out of here." When Lao He shouted, 2 security guards actually came over. The security guards at Longsheng are relatively young, all strong men in their 20s and 30s. The 2 security guards walked quickly to the service desk, and one of them just handed Lao He a smile. "Brother He, what's up?" Lao He was even more arrogant now, pointing his finger at Zhao Xiaoyan and saying, "This kid came to our Longsheng to cause trouble, you get him out of here." The 2 security guards had actually noticed this side of the room earlier, and they had heard the conversation clearly. But Lao He was after all the boss's driver, and this young man looked like he didn't come from a good family, and was probably really just there to apply for a job. The 2 guards naturally didn't want to offend Lao He, so they chose the lesser of the 2 evils. So the security guard shouted at Zhao Xiaoyan, "You little brat, you dare to make trouble at Longsheng, get out of here now." As he said this, he tried to grab Zhao Xiaoyan's clothes. Zhao Xiaoyan dodged the hand that reached for him, and glared at the 2 security guards. "You didn't even ask what I was doing here, and you just listened to what a driver said and want to kick me out?" Lao He was furious when he heard Zhao Xiaoyan call him a driver. "You're the driver, and your whole family is a driver. What are you 2 still standing here for? Hurry up and get this person out of here." The 2 security guards were about to intervene again, but Zhao Xiaoyan kept his cool and said, "Don't bother, I'll leave on my own. But I warn you, it's easy for me to go out, but I don't care what the consequences are if I come back." You're such a smartass, and you talk a lot of nonsense. Just get out of here. Zhao Xianyan didn't say anything else, and without the help of the security guards, he strode out the door. Seeing Zhao Xianyan being driven out, Lao He let out a smile of revenge, and shouted at the security guards, "You just stand guard at the door, and don't let him come back in." The two security guards really listened to him. After escorting Zhao Xianyan out, they really stood guard at the door, occasionally giving Zhao Xianyan a glance. Zhao Xianyan was at a loss for words in the face of these people's actions. He picked up the phone and just wanted to vent to Su Yener about the problems on their side. But he found that Su Yener had hung up the phone at some point. In the president's office, Lao He, with his hands on his chest, looked at Zhao Xianyan standing outside the door and smiled with great satisfaction. "What do you think? I said to kick you out, and you were kicked out, right? Humph, and you still want to work for Longsheng? Do you think Longsheng is a place where just anyone like you can work? Get out of here, don't be in the way." Zhao Xianyan looked at Lao He with a mocking expression and said, "Do you believe that later you will have to beg me to let you in? Me beg you to come in? You must not be awake yet. I'll put it this way, if you can get into Longsheng today, I'll take your surname. No, we Zhaos don't have people like you who look down on others. You. Humph, I'm not bothered by people like you." At this moment, on the 28th floor directly above, in the president's office, as Su Yener hung up the phone, Hao Yu, who was standing opposite her, cursed in her heart at Lao He. "The boss's guest, and you just indiscriminately drove them away. Aren't you just looking for death?" Sure enough, when she looked at Su Yener's face again, it was as ugly as it could be. Not long ago, Su Yener received a call from her grandfather, telling her that Zhao Xianyan would be visiting her in a while. He also told her about Zhao Xianyan's plan to start a business. The unspoken meaning was that Su Yener should find a capable and reliable person to help Zhao Xianyan first. Although she was also very surprised that Zhao Xianyan actually had 2 billion yuan to start a business, Su Yener was more concerned about who should help. After all, for this matter of Su Dezhang, it can be said that both she and her grandfather owe Zhao Xianyan a favor. Without Zhao Xianyan, it is doubtful that she, Su Yener, would be in her current position. Therefore, Su Yener was going to ask her secretary Hao Yu to help Zhao Xianyan for a while. This was not something Su Yener was doing casually. On the contrary, lending Hao Yu was a very big show of goodwill. After all, to be able to hold the position of secretary to the president of the Lingzhou No. 1 Group, Hao Yu's own abilities are quite outstanding, and they are even comparable to the general managers of some small and medium-sized group companies. But who would have thought that she would encounter this kind of thing? What's even more infuriating is Lao He, her own driver. In front of her, Lao He always acts very humble, and she thought he was an honest and kind person. She never imagined that behind her back, he would actually have such a face. "Hao Yu, go downstairs and invite the person up for me." "Yes, Mr. Su." Hao Yu hesitated for a moment and asked carefully, "What about Lao He and the two security guards? What's the point of keeping them around when they damage the image of our Longsheng group?" "Yes, Mr. Su, I understand.